Peace to the family. Peace, love, and light. All right. Brother Blue. Report a lie to you. I told you we'll be back. We got a special, I got a special live today, a collaboration that I highly anticipate this collaboration. The sister, I've been a fan of her work for quite some time. You know what I'm saying? She is top notch with what it is that she does. Peace, God. Peace. She's good at what she does. Yeah, it's top notch. So this should be dope. You know what I'm saying? We're gonna bring that information. Peace to the God. Peace.
Yeah,
I'm amazing. Get yourself.
Good to see you, man. You already
All
know.
right, so you still in here doing your thing? Okay.
Yeah, man.
All right, it's my guy Pop Art. Say
Yeah.
what's up to the people.
Good. What's good?
Right, when you're here in Atlanta, when you're in Little 5 Point, make sure that you pull up on them and tell them where the shop is at.
1130 Euclid Ave. Yeah, Heart of Little 5.
Heart of Little 5. And you know, this live that I'm doing is going to be about hip-hop, so I want to just show them, yeah. You know, the brother has a natural artistic hip-hop flair, right? And you know, hip-hop is vibrancy, is color, it pops, it is art. Can you tell us what is hip-hop to you?
Man, hip-hop to me is a way of life.
As an Atlanta native, like how integral did hip-hop play into the culture? Because you look like you came up around the time I came up.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying?
yeah.
So did hip-hop raise you?
Definitely. I mean, like, I feel like it afforded me the lifestyle that I live, and just being able to just grow as an artist, like here in the city, like as an entrepreneur, like
yes.
people like fully embrace, you know what I mean, like that whole culture.
Yes.
And I feel like hip hop is, you know, that's the center focus for all of what I do.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah, definitely.
I'm gonna give him a spin through the shop real quick. Let me just show you how my brother gives it up, because he's the main thread in this city when it comes to, you know, appreciation of the culture through art. You know what I'm saying? The hip hop aesthetic or what have you. And, you know, to lend a voice to Southern based culture, you know, Atlanta has a very integral part that it has participated in, you know, in the genre and the culture of hip hop. Miami does, Louisiana does, Texas does, Memphis does. You know what I'm saying? The Carolinas have made their contributions. Everybody's tapped in. VA, we already know, right? Where in the A is this? This is Little 5 Points.
Walk in the park. Nigga, that's your backyard. Say, Drake, where you get them shrooms with the chocolate? The same place.
Thank you, my brother.
Good to
All right.
see you too, man.
I'll be back through.
All right, say less.
All right. Yeah, this is Little 5 Points in Atlanta. But yeah, I gotta get to somewhere where it's a little bit more quiet so we can start this live. Won't let you connect to what? So yeah.
Magview or Dome Jam?
To those that don't know, I'm sure the majority of you do know that it's the 50th anniversary for hip hop, and we wanna lend a high-level observation to some things that have been taking place in hip-hop. You know what I'm saying? We want to put things in perspective, and the best way to do that is to utilize some undeniable science, right? Because what I think and how I feel, that's subjective. You know what I'm saying? Who gives a fuck at the end of the day? But if we can produce receipts that are backed up by science, then it's almost like we're all compelled to pay attention to that, because, you know, who's going to argue with science? Right? So I'm just getting to a place where I'm a little bit more comfortable. Let me get in the whip. Drop the top. Let me see where today's guest is at. So like I said, I'm a fan of the sister's work, have been for the longest time. And not only is the sister an astrologer, she is an artist. So before I knew about her skills with the charts, I knew about her skills with the bars, you know, a different type of chart altogether. Whew. Yeah, it's a scorch out there today, y'all. We're gonna drop the top. We're gonna let it do what it do. Let that good sun in. Yeah, that solar paneling. Yes, sir. Whew. Yeah, that part. Yeah, the ATL, the heat does hit different out here. All right, let me see where my sister's at. Ty Phoenix, if you in the building, send me a request. I'm sending you one right now as well. All right. So we're gonna have a very high vibrational, high observational conversation about hip hop today. You know what I'm saying? And what better time to have it than the now moment, right? So much going on with the genre, and it is steadily approaching its 50th anniversary, birthday being August 11th. All right. So with no further ado,
Hey, Blue.
Phoenix, there she go.
Ooh,
Peace.
boy, you in the ghost.
Peace.
You lean back in the ghost.
Yeah, I'm you know, we got to do it up the right way.
Peace.
Yeah, I can't,
Good to
Yeah,
see
I'll hold the
you.
phone. It's all good. Peace. Good to see you as well. I was telling the people how much of a fan of yours I am, and coincidentally enough, we're here speaking about the genre of hip hop. Before I picked up a microphone and considered myself an artist and put my 2 cents in it, you know what I'm saying? I was in the audience observing you as an artist, and I've always been enamored by people's artistic display. I was a fan longer than I was a participant. You feel me? And I always considered it a sacred platform. I always considered it an art form. I always considered it something that you just don't. Like everything else in life, they're like, yo, it's supposed to choose you. You don't choose it, right? The real serious shit, like, yeah, it chooses you. So I always felt like it was a fraternity. Like it was just something that was so sacred that if you don't have the fullest intention, stay away from it and just participate, in another way. I became a hip hop journalist to tell the stories of hip hop more so than anything. That I was enamored by the process and the procedure. When I was going by the source, that's what I wanted to know. I wanted to know what was the thought process that Nas used to write rhymes. I wanted to know what his studio regimen was. I wanted to know what books he read. I wanted to know, ideologically what was behind each song. Like, explain it to me. Give me the breakdown. I didn't need to know how to do the bars. I was cool enough just with being a fan of the music. And then at one point, I was like, I wanna, you know what I'm saying? I had bars. I will tell you how it happened, and we could get into it. I was locked up. It was probably 96 or probably 97. Um, and because I was from New York, everybody assumed that you know how to rhyme. I was in Virginia at the time, and we was in a cipher, and people was freestyling, and somebody threw a jab at me in a freestyle, right? They threw a bar at me, so I had to represent. You feel me? I had to rise to the occasion. I couldn't let that slide. So that became my entry point into rhyming. and I'm I consider I'm a clever wordsmith. I'm already a poet. So I was like, oh, okay, just like this, we doing the dozens. I started out, I was,
Right.
I had to chop him up, so I started out rhyming doing the dozens. But then, I developed the natural knack and love for it. But I still approach it with baby gloves out of appreciation, and I have such a high regard for, the artists who really live this. You know what I'm saying? Who bleed hip hop. You feel me? Or rap for that matter. So it's a topic that's very passionate to me. I consider myself, a child of hip hop. I was raised in a hip hop generation. I got a lot of my social cues from hip hop. I've contributed things that I consider to be of value to hip hop as well. And we're embarking on the 50th anniversary. You know what I'm saying? So to I wanted to speak to you on this particular topic. As you one being a participant, I don't really buy into, even though we're going to speak about women in hip hop, I don't make a distinction like a femc per se. You feel me? I feel that bars are bars. If you put a rhyme together, you're a rapper. Your gender per se, that shouldn't necessarily lead the conversation
I
more
agree.
so than you're a member of the craft. You know what I'm saying? And you're also an astrologer. And I wanted to qualify some of these observations with a cosmic concordance, so it's just not
Definitely.
our thoughts and our beliefs. You know what I'm saying? And the other night, I was making an observation, and we was having a conversation, and we were speaking about hip hop in its 50th year. Where it's at. Up until I guess last week, it hadn't charted yet. You know what I'm saying? So people were being hypercritical
Mhm.
of the state of, like, all right, well, where is it at? What is it doing? And one of the things that is very prominent that people cannot front on is the fact that there has been an upswelling and a higher representation of female voices in hip hop. Women picking up the craft and doing what needs to be done in their own, if you will, in their own expression. It seems there's a lot of creativity. There's a lot of, it seems that where they have the game and their foresight for it, where it can possibly go, the trajectory in their mind seems to be a lot further out, where the men seem somewhat stuck. You know what I'm saying? And they're rhyming about the same things, and there's a over, you know what I'm saying? Like the market is overcrowded with the content that has become stagnant. So it's like, we don't, that shit played out last year. So you got all of it, you know what I'm saying? So
Yeah,
it's a formula that
I
seems to
agree.
not be working.
I agree.
You know what I'm saying? It's a formula that seems to not be working. So when what I did notice about the uptick in the representation of females in hip hop, I'm also wanted to look at it as an expression of what's taking place cosmologically, you know what I'm saying, with hip hop in its 50th year. Because I do remember having a conversation with Rod Cool in 2017. This was around the time that the 444 album came out. And when he looked at the chart, he was like, all right, hip hop is going to be moving towards more of a female based expression voice. And that was the year that Cardi B broke out. And I was like, and, he did the reading before she went on her run. And I said to him, I was like, yeah, there's an artist coming out of the Bronx, ironically. You know what I'm saying? And she's on fire. So this year we look at Ice Spice. This year we look at Scarlet. This year we look at, we and there's other artists that I'm not familiar with everybody's name, but a lot of women coming out of the Bronx are at the forefront of the conversation around the genre in the 50th year. I want to go on record and say the biggest story in hip hop
Mm.
50 is the women in hip hop. The the voice of women that has been suppressed in the 50 years,
the misogyny that has been heaped upon women in the 50th year, but also the ability of women to utilize hip hop as a medium to have a conversation with the world that they have not been able to have any other place, specifically in the northeastern corridor of America, which we would consider the East Coast, the tri-state area. Women were able to do in hip hop with women outside of hip hop, just in the culture, were not able to do around the country, and that was to have an objective voice. To the degree that I've traveled places and I've heard conversations from other regions where they like, y'all niggas need to get y'all women in check. You know what I'm saying? Don't nobody check them where y'all from. They just get to say whatever. And I'm like, no, the suppression of women's voice in New York is the only place it did not play out. Let's take a look at this. Women did not have a say, right, about their sexuality, about their preferences, about what they like, how they feel in the South, right? In hip hop, that didn't necessarily happen. In the Midwest, we know that, you know, and these regions are synonymous, ironically, with pimping. So in the West and the Midwest and the southern regions of this country, Texas in particular, where they have a whole different ideology about how they press on the suppression of female expression, hip hop did not really show up, you know what I'm saying, as a powerful tool for female expression. In New York, though, we had MC Lyte, we had Queen in the tri-state area, we had Bahamadia, we had MC Lyte, we had Salt and Pepper, Queen Latifah, we have you, and there were a plethora of other females, right, who for the most part got to talk their shit. You know what I'm saying? Nowhere else in the country, right? People would say, oh, the Lady of Rage, she didn't come from the West Coast. Lady of Rage is from Virginia. When I think about Boss, I don't remember where Boss came
she's from the
from. She
West
was
Coast.
definitely talking her shit. And she was respected. But she came and she went, you know what I'm saying? Like, we don't really know what became of her.
Okay.
And yeah, I made another observation, but I'll leave it there because I definitely want to hear your thoughts on it. And then I'll come up
Okay,
with
I'm excited to hear that.
my next shocking revelation.
But you definitely gave an excellent summarization, I would say, as far as how we got from point A till now. Because everything is still in motion. You know, the evolution of hip hop is ongoing. And you're right, there has been a very strong presence, a fortified presence of women that we could say comparably to previous years, it hasn't really been as intense as it is now. I wanted to kind of definitely chime in on that and give you my perspective on what I think is happening. Even, even really briefly, I wanted to go into why we're even celebrating the 50th anniversary and why we didn't celebrate the 46th or the 43rd or the 42nd. Like, why the 50th? Why is the 50th, anniversary of hip hop getting such fanfare? Where's all this celebratory energy come from? And I wanted to really kind of touch on that from an astrological perspective as well as numerology, because from studying and mastering sciences that it doesn't matter if you're in human design, numerology, astrology, palmistry. At some point, all those cosmologies are going to intersect, and you're going to see consistencies. You're going to see consistencies in the data. It's going to add up. It's like how you talk to your Christian friends and you talk to your friends in Judaism, but they may have similar experiences in terms of their spiritual growth or in terms of some sort of enlightening or awareness that they've experienced. And you're like, because at the end of the day, the truth is going to show up in different forms, but there's going to be consistency across the board. So I definitely wanted to touch on what you're saying about the female presence, even down to, you know, current events. Current events are not just to keep up with what's happening in the world. Current events are for you to corroborate and verify what's happening in the energy. Because whatever's happening on the world stage is going to support what's going on in the energy. So India Ari, I know you heard about India Ari and how she publicly criticized Megan Thee Stallion's performance, and I think Janelle Monáe, she had opinions. So that right. I guess we're gonna dive into that later when we talk about the women and the presence and women in pop culture and hip hop culture. But I wanted to bring that up really quickly. It was on my mind because that alone, that story alone, suggests that even the women are not monolithic, meaning that women don't look at other women in the public eye and say, this woman is a representative of my mindset, of my behaviors, of my values. Some women see a woman who gets consistent publicity. She's on the world stage being celebrated, promoted, being upheld as a celebrity, as a public figure. And some women say, but she's not me. Other women say, that is me. I am a city girl. I am, you know, a Barbie or whatever archetype you identify with as a woman, but everyone is not monolithic. So I just kind of wanted to insert that in real quick, and then I guess I want to hear definitely what you think about that later. But back to the whole idea of the 50th anniversary and why, like I said, it's getting this rush of fanfare. Because we didn't say 49 years old. Hip hop is 49 years old. Let's celebrate. Hip hop is 48 years old. Let's celebrate. We didn't do that. So why 50? Okay. So numerology, astrology, they go hand in hand for me. So what is the fifth sign of the zodiac? And hip hop sun sign is. The
sign of the zodiac would be Leo.
Okay. 50, let's put the 0 to the side, but we still have the 5. So consistently, 5, 50, it's still 5 energy. And hip hop sun sign is,
Right. And I don't know if you are a past member of the Zulu Nation or what have you. But
yes.
We know that hip hop has 5 pillars. Right? Yeah, just like Islam. And we can name them for the audience if they're not familiar. Graffiti, breakdancing,
DJ,
rap, DJing, and they call it in knowledge itself. The knowledge is the 5th pillar, is often a pillar that's said it is missing. You know, when they say what the game's been missing, you know what I'm saying? Often they're referring to the knowledge base or you know what I'm saying, that particular factor, that fifth element.
5 pillars, right? 5 pillars of hip hop. The 5th sign of the zodiac is Leo. Hip hop is in fact a Leo. And just to continue on with the synchronicities or whatever, Jupiter, the planet of higher knowledge, expansion, long distance travel. Hip hop has Jupiter in its chart in Aquarius at 5 degrees. The North Node, which is what you should get.
Jupiter, Aquarius. Yo, you know what? That's so dope. Let me qualify this, like you said, via numerology, right? And the gematria, which is a numerological system of assigning numbers to letters to deduce, you know what I'm saying, a frequency. When we add up, I think it's in simple gematria, when we add up the word hip hop, it equals 432. So 432 is a frequency that's synonymous with the heart, right? But also in gematria and coincides with the word world, right? So when I look at hip hop as being a global phenomenon, I'm easily able to say, well, it's consistent with its frequency. It went global immediately. It didn't take a lot of time. Even the fact that, think about how it matriculated across the coast, right? When they was on the West Coast saying, y'all, because pop locking don't come from the East Coast. Pop locking come from the West Coast. We was doing the same dances in different regions without having visual support. The only thing that was migrating was mixtapes. They didn't have visuals that was moving around, the country or the world, but people still was busting the same moves. Almost like they was talking about the 100 monkey syndrome, right? The morphogenetic grid, that if X amount of us are doing something in one place, then automatically we're going to start doing it in somewhere else. But I'm saying all that to say the Jupiter and the
Yes, that's the
Aquarius,
collective.
Aquarius is world as well, right? Right, Jupiter's expansion, you know what I'm saying? So I'm looking at it like, yeah, hip hop is always expanding. They say that you can find hip hop in remote villages and places where TV ain't even ain't. You know what I'm saying? They still know they know.
It's crazy. It was not a fad that came and went. It's like, and you know what else? The North Node. I'm sure you know what the North Node symbolizes in a birth chart. That's what you're aspiring to learn. That's what you're here to embody. And you know where the North Node is in Leo's chart? Yeah. Capricorn,
that's your
5 degrees. So we got some more fives. This is like
more fives. Yo. And damn, yo, this is so fucking dope. I'm about to like, hold on, let's just get offline and go write a book and come. Let's hit these niggas next week with a book. Hold on. So hip hop started on what they call the 5 points. And I'm in little 5 points, ironically, having this conversation. But hip hop started on the 5 point of what they call the 5 stars. So hip hop started with Islam first. As the dominant expression in the voice, there was counterculture at that time. The system, right? The people who are considered to be the progenitors of the craft mostly were resonating with 5-star energy, right? Which would be Islam. Christianity or 6-pointed energy did not usher in hip hop until Puffy and Big, right? Who were ex-Catholic school members when Big brought in the Jesus piece and kind of shifted the energy to crass commercialism. That's kind of when Catholicism and Christianity kind of crept in. 6-star energy started moving into hip hop by way of materialism. Prior to that, it was a struggle because it was going through Islam, but in the crack era. You know what I'm saying? Like I tell people, the biggest, the biggest crack dealers around my name was Supreme and Understanding and Wisdom Born and them niggas. You know what I'm saying? They controlled the trade. So it was an ill dichotomy that I'm like, you got the lessons in one hand.
And that's the beautiful part to me about that early evolution of hip hop. And that's, it's funny because, like you said, Jupiter, higher knowledge, and Aquarius being the collective, Aquarius being everyone, Aquarius being knowledge itself. Jupiter is higher knowledge. Aquarius is knowledge. It's futuristic ideas, technology. So when you think about it, even down to some of the other placements in hip hop's birth chart, although people might, they have their different purposes for why they love hip hop and listen to it. Some people want to be entertained. Some people had a hard week, and when I go to the club at the end of the week, I decompress. Hip hop makes me forget my problems. So for some people, hip hop has a therapeutic kind of purpose to it. But the chart heavily suggests to me, the chart heavily suggests that knowledge and informing people, enlightening people is a part of hip hop's purpose and overall, just the overall scope of what it's supposed to do, even though, like you said, music, you know, we dance, we have fun, we go to the club and forget our problems. But yeah, the knowledge is heavy in the chart.
You know, this this deep. This is real deep. This is real deep. This is really touching me, you know, on a soul level, because I grew up in a household where I had to fight, literally, to listen to hip hop, to appreciate hip hop, to be a student and a child of, you know, I had to fight to get that, that respect and that appreciation, because I grew up in a jazz household, and my father didn't want to hear nothing that wasn't jazz based. He would bang on hip hop, and he told me something that was so profound that I keep it today and I repeat it, right? And I'm there telling him like, yo, you know what you're talking about? Da, 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 da. He's like, bro. He was like, I was there. You wasn't. He was like, because I was trying to make the case that I'm like, you know, this is about knowledge. This is about teaching. He's like, this is about party and bullshit. He said, how you know that the knowledge and the teaching wasn't the exception and not the rule, right? How you know that that wasn't just a phase and a smidget, and the party and the bullshit was the rule? He's like, which one has a stronger attraction and a longer staying power? He's like, the knowledge is blimp. It comes and goes. People can do for it and do without it, but they can't do without party and bullshit. I was like, damn, that was, you know, it hit me in my chest. I ain't want to receive that the way that he gave it up. But I used it, you know, kept it in the back of my mind and just observed as I moved through the years and took the temperature of it. And I'm like, it is a powerful tool of teaching. I shared a story with people that when I couldn't spell words in English class, when I was going through my high school education, I used to remember how KRS-One used the word in a sentence. I would remember how Rakim used the words. So I would not have graduated. I would not probably be who I am if it wasn't for, and then, I mean, that's just the scholastic education. I had, you know, they give you street ed, you know what I'm saying? Like, I remember we would sneak to listen to, what you call it, Slick Rick, to get pointers on relationships, how to deal with women,
I mean,
not necessarily treat them like a
hip
prostitute,
hop
but
raised a lot of people.
you know, I mean,
Whether the results,
it raised us,
whether the
and we was
results have been
latchkey,
favorable,
so it was really raising
or
us.
you know, that's up for critique. Just like some people have learned how to express their sexuality through porn. Media has raised people, you know, and sometimes that's not a good thing, and other times
Yes.
the gems, the jewels that we took from it, some of those gems and jewels, we are still operating off of that knowledge. So it's not all negative. Somebody put in the chat, what's hip hop's Mercury placement? 0 degrees of Leo, the critical degree. Yes. So the sun is in Leo and the Mercury is in Leo. And
Now, to those that don't know, can you explain to them what that
yes.
placement exactly means?
So in
0
astrology, there are
Leo?
degrees called critical degrees. And it's exactly what it sounds like. The first degree of any sign, 0 degrees, is a critical degree. The last degree of any sign, which is 29 degrees, is a critical degree. So Mercury being the communication, your thought processes, how you think, how you speak. Mercury in Leo. Leo, the sign of recreation, playfulness, and self-expression. So Mercury in Leo with the sun in Leo. Anybody, like, I know in the chat, who's ever had a reading from me, if you have Mercury and the sun in the same sign, so you have the sun in Aries, Mercury in Aries, or the sun in Sag and the moon and Mercury in Sag. If you have the sun and Mercury together moving in any sign, you are usually a very confident communicator. A confident communicator with empowered speech. Why? Mercury is communication and the sun is our egoic force. So the Mercury and the sun rolling together in Leo, the sign of communication, says that, hey, when you step up to that mic, it's about self-expression from what? The heart, because Leo rules the heart. So Mercury in Leo, which I have that in my chart.
Right.
Mercury and Leo, I have that in my chart. And hip hop has Mercury and the Sun both in its chart. Now,
Right. So
it speaks to you.
that
You
also
have the right to
speaks
have
to
fun.
part of your
Leo is the
bullshit.
sign of fun and enjoying yourself, and the sign of the child.
Right.
And not only just being immature and playful, but your inner child. Your inner child is that part of you that wants to express itself without judgment, free of judgment and critique, and being open and sharing yourself, you know, without being concerned about how other people feel and think. So it makes perfect sense that hip hop is a Leo to me. But I wanted to point out all those fives, why we would celebrate it the 50th year as opposed to the 48th year, because the fives. Now, in numerology, you know what five symbolizes, right? Of course.
We're listening.
Like change. Because when you stand on your square, which is 4 sides, that means your foundation is solid. You're handling your business. You know, you're just got everything under control. Like a table has 4 legs because it stands solid. But if something happens to one of those legs, obviously the foundation is now disturbed. So after 4, where we have the foundation, the steadiness, the stability, and the consistency, just people, I'm sure people in the chat know this, but again, there's consistencies in these cosmologies. So 4, stable, solid, firm, foundation, square. The 4th sign of the zodiac is Cancer. Again, foundation, your home. So you're going to see consistencies. But so people who go, I study numerology, I'm not studying astrology. No, it doesn't really matter. Like, you're going to see consistencies across the board. So after you leave that stable foundation of 4, you get to 5, which is the sudden change. You see 555 on the clock. If you wake up, oh, I woke up and I looked on the clock and said 555. That means you got some change coming in your life. 555, the master number, or fives in general, denote that there's changes coming. So for us to celebrate the 50th year, like I said, not the 43rd year or not the, you know, the 40th year, but the 50th year tells me that the changes that are happening, as well as the changes that are coming, are going to be paramount. Having a stronger presence of women is only one of those changes, just one. That was a major change. And to speak to what you said about the presence of women being so noticeable at this point, Saturn in a birth chart represents what you are obligated or mandated to do. It represents responsibility, discipline. It's where you don't have a choice. Like, sometimes you have a choice in what to do, and other times life is like, no, you have to go this road and walk this path. Hip hop has Saturn in Cancer, the sign of the woman, the mother, the nurturer, and the South Node in Cancer. So both Saturn and the South Node in Cancer. What that means is that not really appreciating the woman, not really celebrating the woman, denigrating the woman, undermining the woman, there's Saturnian consequences for that. You know? And the South Node is usually representative of where we're turning away from. We're not abandoning it, but the South Node helps us manifest the North Node. You look to your South Node to see where you've been. Because like Sankofa, you have to look where you've been to know where you're going, right? So the South Node in Cancer says, hey, not paying attention to our emotions. Cancer is a sign of emotions and feeling. Not honoring our emotions. Not honoring the divine feminine, Cancer. Not honoring the divine mother, the nurturer. We face consequences for that. Saturn conjunct the South Node in Cancer. This is all in hip hop's birth chart. So I just wanted to expound on the woman element.
I want to make a more controversial statement. Right? If we look at the women in hip hop who have retained a level of respect, who did not get trampled on, right? Who did not get thrown to the wayside or to the wolves, who the culture was forced to show up to and pay homage, were the women in the culture that were carrying the flag of LGBT. So when we speak about the Aquarian nature of it, and you speak about the number 5 and sudden change, I'm wondering, does that denote the
Aquarius, yeah.
planet Uranus? Or does the number 5? I know it comes in with Aquarian, but isn't it, does it correlate
Aquarius
to the
is
number
the
5?
11th
What
house in
planet
zodiac,
is that?
which speaks to sudden change. Now, we'll say
No,
this.
11.
Speaking of the synchronicity of the numbers, the
No, I'm
Leo
saying
sun in hip hop chart is 19 degrees. Uranus, which you just spoke about, Uranus, the planet symbolizing knowledge, experimental things that are out there left field, is 19 degrees of Libra. So that's Sun in Leo at 19 degrees and the Uranus in Libra at 19 degrees. That is called a sextile. So the Sun in Uranus.
right. So let's look at, has MC Light
You
ever
said what?
disrespected in hip hop?
Not
Was
that I
MC
can
Light ever
recall. I
disrespected in
don't
hip
remember
hop?
any scandals or anything like that.
Was Queen
Not that I
Latifah ever
recall.
disrespected in hip hop? And I'm giving you an example of people who are still at the top. They're at the pinnacle of their game. They're trendsetters. They're trailblazers. They've opened doors, and you can't fuck with them because they're that positioned in the genre. Matter of fact, they might be the most successful in the genre if you look at it in terms of longevity.
No, didn't she just go into the Hall of Fame or something like that?
That was the Brad ever disrespected in genre, other than the other day when Bow Wow had something to say about Jermaine Dupri, she had to clap.
I mean, they didn't have major scandals, you know.
So, right, the major scandals, you know, the things that happen in the genre where they kind of like cannibalize the energy of women, especially those that they become familiar with because they've been sexually involved to some degree. Right? We don't see that. And then we see their ability to stand in their space, being who they are, opening doors, you know what I'm saying? And then we see a cultural shift that has taken place, right? Overall, and I would consider them very paramount players in that paradigm shift without necessarily wearing it on their sleeve, but just them representing the way that they did in the genre gain respect for a whole nother class of people who previously got no respect whatsoever in the culture. So again, it's just an observation that I'm looking at when we talk about divinity and what our concepts are when we say, oh, divine feminine. Can I call the queen a divine feminine even though she might be laying down with other queens?
Woo, it's getting hot in here.
So, right. Yeah, it's getting hot, right? We got to have these conversations that somewhat bend the rules just so we can see certain things for what they are. Because, I mean, and also the 50th year, the truth about hip hop is out. The two people who are responsible or credited with being the twin pillars of hip hop or opening the door, Africa Bambaataa and Russell Simmons, right? We kind of know, you know what I'm saying, that they belong to the community as well. So the initial fingerprints of hip hop is not what you thought it was. And I think, again, with that Leo placement or that Leo energy in these 50 years, we kind of seen a version or image of masculinity play itself out that we could speak about it to the spectrums, from hyper masculine to what's considered to be like
you know, fluid masculinity where you got, you know, the top entertainers such as Drake putting on pink fingernails, or pink nail polish, right?
Well, right.
But again, it's just an interesting observation about, you know, because the shit started with, you know, niggas was wearing lace. Niggas was wearing lace like Melly Mel and them, you know what I'm saying? They came right out of disco, and the way that they was dressing and expressing themselves, you feel me? It was like, wait, what? And that was them being part of the downtown scene, right? So hip hop says a lot of things. Hip hop to me is also the latest iteration of integration. Hip hop to me is the baby that was born out of integration in the late 60s, the early 70s. It was the first example that we got to see with us flirting with another culture, attempting to cross the street and go over to their side, and they looking both ways and saying, let me cross the street and come over to your side. You know what I'm saying? That's also my observation, that hip hop is an iteration of integration. And you know, like we said, the gifts and the curses that come along with that. Everything is not pretty that we're discussing, but everything can be observed because we went through it. So we're just taking a review and looking back to say, what were some of the things that were pretty much, you know what I'm saying, tethered to hip hop as a culture,
Absolutely. I
the way that
mean,
it barreled through. And some of the things that we need to put aside so it could go further. I do feel that there should be, um, everybody should have access to it as a vehicle of expression, regardless of, because shit, they out here saying
well,
whatever already.
can you say whatever you want without consequences? Is that how the laws are set up? No.
Oh no, that and that's weird, right? Because you can't say whatever. But we out here saying they saying whatever, but you technically can't say whatever. You could say whatever over there, right? That's part of the whatever conversation that takes place on that side. But when you want to say whatever and it takes place over here, where it's, like you said, more in line with the message, right? Case in point, right? When the first socially conscious hip
Oh,
hop
yeah, absolutely.
song I ever heard was The Message. But I heard Rapper's Delight, and then I heard The Message. And I was able as a child then to say, this is a different, you know, both of this is all of this is rap, but this is party and this is social commentary that I could still get with because it still had that beat. You know what I'm saying? It still had a bop to it. It was 7 minutes long, but you know what I'm saying? It made me think.
Hip hop is a Leo. Okay.
You know what I'm saying? Rappers Delight.
I know you know this. You're going to know this. What? Okay.
Yes.
What is the 8th house of Leo? In the chart. So if you were to put Leo to the ascendant, what would be the 8th house to that? We put hip hop to this. Hip hop is a Leo. So what is the 8th house of Leo? Pisces.
You tell me.
And what energy, what energy does 8th house represent? You know this.
Death. Scorpio
sex,
is transformation, is rebirth.
Right?
It's,
okay, so the 8th house of Leo is Pisces. The 8th house represents death, sex. Now, what has been some very prevalent, consistent themes in hip hop? Death culture, hypersexuality.
Death culture, all the way. Right.
So what planet represents consequences and discipline when you get out of line? Where is Saturn right now?
Saturn. It's in Capricorn, right? I mean,
Saturn
no,
is retrograde in the 8th house of Leo.
Right.
So hip hop right now, Saturn is in its 8th house, and we just said 8th house
Leo.
speaks to death culture, hypersexuality, and Saturn is consequences. So what do you think about hip hop, Leo, speaking irresponsibly with death themes, hyper overt sexuality, where Saturn is transiting that house? You see what I'm saying? What's happening right now with the idea of you have to always look to Saturn to see exactly where you're going to face consequences. So I'm saying with Saturn transiting the 8th house for hip hop, no, the hypersexuality, which back to the India RE situation, because that's exactly what that was about. That was exactly what India RE, the death culture. You know, I wouldn't be spraying people with the Draco in my rhymes right now with Saturn in the 8th house for hip hop. I wouldn't be. You feel me? Like, I'm just following the divine instruction and the way the universe is playing out the law. So Saturn in the 8th house for hip hop says the irresponsible sexuality, because Saturn's about being responsible and mature. So being irresponsible with those 8th house themes, death, maybe even the money thing. We know hip hop is heavy in the materialism, right? Irresponsibility with respect to money issues, sexuality, death themes, death-oriented themes. Even when the South Node in the transit, the South Node is leaving Scorpio, we were supposed to be transitioning out of that hypersexuality and that death fascination, you know.
Right. That, can I, the conversation, maybe this time last year or even early this year was the depreciation of the devaluing of death. So it's not only a death culture, they smoking on the packs. You know what I'm saying? So the way that the disregard for the dead, the disrespect, you know what I'm saying, from that for that noble station of the 8th house of what that transmutation means. Like the youngsters, they took a whole meaning in the transmutation of death. I'm gonna turn you into a pack. I'm gonna transmute into a bag of weed and smoke on you. That has to have consequences. You know what I'm saying? Because we kind of see where it's going. The devaluation of death leads to the devaluation of life. You know what I'm saying? What I wanted to ask as well is that because it is associated with Pisces, is it being exasperated by Pisces meaning music, Pisces meaning drugs, Pisces meaning illusions, Pisces
Neptune
meaning,
and
the deepest
Saturn
of the
both are
ocean,
in
the
Pisces,
crevices
and
of
they're both
things?
retrograde. So you're absolutely right. Pisces representing music, Pisces representing narcotics. So Saturn being retrograde there speaks to the Piscean issues of being irresponsible with drug use, being delusional or just absent-minded. You know, Pisces is where things dissolve.
And to the credit of the younger rappers and our brothers that are coming up, I hear less smoking on packs. I hear less nihilistic death rap. I hear less irresponsibility. I do see moves for artists to come back to the center. You know what I'm saying? I seen a picture earlier with Little Dirk in the mosque. You know what I'm saying? I do hear the overtures that some of these artists are making to say, I do want help. Like, stop pointing fingers and somebody show up and show me some guidance. You know what I'm saying? I do see that and I hear it. And it's not as strong anymore, or it's not as strong. It doesn't seem as strong right now as it was prior. Now the conversation that we're at that has us in a pickle now is the sexuality and the sexual expression in hip hop, by way of the feminine principle. You know what I'm saying? And now, how does that show up? Because, like you said, women are not a monolith, and you're gonna. And I actually watched. I watched the majority of the performances at the Essence Fest this year, just to gauge for myself what was going on, because they were honoring hip hop. A lot of those venues were empty when they had the classics and the you know what I'm saying, until the regional favorites came on.
Yep.
Right. So that's the southern region. They was there for No Limit. They was there for the raunchier sets. They were there for that. That's they shit. These are HSBCU graduates, and they turn up, right? They swag surf.
No.
They're not really there for the knowledge. So when Meg had her show, it was packed. Yeah, it was the end of the night, but and yeah, there was women in the crowd, but those people brought their children to see Megan. They're not, they wasn't held captive in the stadium. It was the end of the night. She was the show closer. If you're there, you know what you're there for, and you know what you're showing up to a Meg Thee Stallion performance to get. Right? I'm just saying for the responsibility factor, because there's just way too much finger pointing in the culture. You know what I mean? And yeah, you know, this is gonna be the stage, I guess, that, you know, becomes the battleground, especially, you know, with what you're telling me astrologically is taking place. And I heard what was being said. I've been hearing what people said for a while, and you know, I make jokes here and there. Sometimes I I push back with humor. So I'm like, women empowerment is women being able to call themselves bitches on their own, you know, regards rather than men. And they're like, yeah, that is women empowerment. Now, another expression is to say, oh, they should just do away with the word altogether, and that's also empowering. But that's not where we at yet. And I would love to see that that's where we get. You know what I'm saying? But I don't want to see us go to war necessarily over it per se. You feel me? When at the end of the day, and this is just me personally speaking, I'm interjecting myself into it. I'm like, all right, well, where are we going? Period. Like, what is the end goal? Because with no end goal in sight, you're just gonna have recreation. You're gonna have this recreational attitude. You know what I'm saying?
I think that
So
the sexuality issue is a slippery slope because people don't like to feel that their sexual expression is being stifled or limited in some way. And dealing with hip hop, back to the astrology and the birth chart of hip hop having Sun and Mercury and Leo. Leo is a sign of self-expression. It's also the sign of romance. It's a sign of romance. That fifth house Leo energy is about being playful, romantic. I think this is where it gets very, very tricky, and you have to almost you just have to have an active third eye to really analyze anything in 2023. In Gregorian calendar 2023, you need an active third eye, because if you don't know the difference between liberated womanly sexual expression and weaponized sexuality to keep people oppressed in terms of their consciousness, keeping their consciousness suppressed. If you are locked in that sacral chakra, you know, because your desires control you. South Node is Scorpio. South Node is leaving Scorpio. It's been there for over a year and a half. We were supposed to be getting this under control. That's where you need the wisdom to know the difference between expressing yourself freely with a conscious mind, because conscious sexuality is healthy. You're an adult. You make adult decisions about with whom you want to connect and interact on a sexual level. You know the consequences of your behavior, you know, whether that be you want to have fun and enjoyable experience, or you want to have a child, whatever your intentions are. You're an adult, you're a conscious thinking adult. You know what comes with sexuality. Right. The problem here with this music, even with the women, the men and the women, the sexuality is being weaponized to keep people from being awake, to keep people from tapping in to the most elevated parts of themselves. If you're controlled by your desires all day, it doesn't matter whether it's sex, food, doesn't matter what it is. If you're controlled by your desires and you're living, you know, basically with your root chakra in the wheel, your root chakra is in the driver's seat, you know what I'm saying? Your sacral chakra, which is what this music heavily promotes, which is what a lot of these song themes suggest. Go to the club, have a good time, don't think about the consequences, leave with him, leave with her, whatever it is. I mean, I hate to sound like, I hate to sound like the
And
overcritical, you
bullshit.
know.
Yeah, we hate to
I
sound
know,
older, right?
but,
Yeah, we
and
hate to
I'm
sound
so
like our
self-conscious
parents,
about that, Blue. I'm so self-conscious
but
about that. But the truth
but
of the matter is, if you're in a time of active spiritual warfare, and one of the
I,
most frequently utilized weapons is sexuality, you have to be conscious about how it is, how you are inundated with the imagery and the ideology of just sex all day with whoever, wherever. Doesn't matter what their frequency is, I'm tapping in. Doesn't matter who they are, I'm gonna receive his energy. Doesn't leave he's gonna have his genetic imprint on me, his whatever. It's like, just because it feels good, that's hedonistic. At the end of the day, this is an issue in hip hop. And I hate to sound like somebody's angry aunt, parent, grandparent, like, oh, you sound like, but the truth of the matter is, yes, Saturn is in the 8th house of Leo, where hip hop has its sun, meaning that there will be consequences for irresponsible 8th house sorts of themes. Death, obsession with death, obsession with sexuality.
activities, right?
Sexuality, like anything else, is a gateway to empowerment, but only when it is utilized in the proper way, only when it is utilized with a conscious intent. So the music does not, I mean, and I think that's what India RE, now we're going to have the civil war with these different expressions of the divine feminine.
Yeah, yeah. That's what I said. Yeah, it's gonna be. That's where we at. It's gonna be a civil war between these expressions, and we live in a post-crack culture, so we're approaching it and we're speaking like Puritans about what needs to be done. But I'm like, we totally forget that there's crack in the water, right? And the water is our biological systems. Freeway Ricky's still alive. Crack is very much still alive. All of the memories are contained in the water, in the memory banks of the people. So in the morphogenetic grid of this planet, crack is still here. It's very much alive. Crack rap is strong. But we're speaking about morals and principles and things of that nature. And I hear everything that you're saying, and these are internal dialogues that I have with myself. But then I travel through these regions and I know these people. And I know that the sun, since we're speaking about Leo, hits different regions of this planet differently. So I know when we down south, they process sexuality totally different. When I go to Miami, they do it different. When I go to Louisiana, they do it different. When I go, I mean, just all of Florida. You know what I'm saying? When we in Georgia, here on this 33rd grid in Atlanta, the shit is processed different. You feel me? Even in New York, where we got winter months, you know what I mean? It's processed different, but we have a semblance of a consciousness up north in those regions. It's still something that we hold on to. We still have the examples. We're really reaching back before time, before crack, because we don't have present day examples to speak of, right? We got a lot of nerve, but we still hold it down to say our memory reminds us of what this shit looked like, and we are attempting to remind younger people who grew up during a time where they don't have none of those cultural references to be like, nigga, I ain't grow up on the NDIRE. I don't know who that is. They like, shut up and sit down. You sound like an
And that's
old bitch.
what I'm concerned about. That,
So, like I said, I watched that concert, had 3 different waves of women that she invited on stage to come and twerk. They did it voluntarily. After she finished dancing for 1 whole hour, giving them entertainment. Now, that's the way that she entertains. That is her cultural expression. And she's obviously given a percentage of our population what they want, right? Because they're championing her efforts. And then she's marginalized because of the things that she just went through. So we're also speaking about a person that did not get our support as a community when they got allegedly got shot by another brother from the community.
and I
But this is
think
the
she's having a
person that
Saturn
we like,
return.
yo, our children are watching.
And So is Tory Lanez. I think so is Tory Lanez.
and yeah, and
That's a
having a
whole nother,
Saturn,
and the funny thing is,
right?
I think when
She,
Saturn was in
yeah,
Aquarius, sorry about that.
right.
Mm-hmm,
So yeah, because
mm-hmm.
she's an Aquarius and he's a Leo, and as we pointed out last year, right? He caught his sentence, right? He caught his conviction, should I say? Because he hasn't been sentenced yet. He's caught his conviction during the winter solstice when the sun went to die, right, in the west. And then what happens? He gets locked up in the west. They throw the key away, and then inclemental weather comes, as if the sun was locked in the cage for 3 days. It's like they told us with the motif of quote unquote Jesus, but this man's name is Daystar, and his father's name is Sunstar. So when we look at the motifs that are spilling and playing out, him being from the north, him bringing the north, and because what was it? It was it flooded, it rained in California for like 2 months after that. More so much so that they cured the entire flooding issue that they had. That's how much rain came right after they locked the sun up during the winter for shooting an Aquarius in the foot, and foot represents Pisces, and she's an Aquarius representing the change of the seasons. So she embodies the prototype of what this Aquarian age represents in regards to female sexuality, unbridled sexuality. You know what I'm saying? Her being we know what the Aquarian represents. She's Megan Thee Stallion. She's that very amorphous energy that's male and female. That's what Aquarian
I
represents.
mean,
These are all of the
like you
motifs from
said,
what I
that
understand.
happened when Saturn was in Aquarius before it went into Pisces. And Aquarius, as you know, is a sign of friends. And Saturn is consequences.
Right.
That whole case is about being more selective about how you choose your friends and the people with whom you associate. And at the time,
Yes.
I remember at the time, we had discussed it on a live, I think. So at the time, she was having a Venus return at the time of the trial, or something like that. I can't remember now. But everything you touched on, right and exact. They both having sun opposition. Him being a Leo, her being Aquarius. So when Saturn was in Aquarius opposite Leo, not just Tory Lane's sun, but where hip hop has the sun. When Saturn was opposite Leo, the message then was to be more responsible, Saturn to the collective, Aquarius. The message has been, so now Saturn has transited out of Aquarius, is now in Pisces, and this is the last stop. Pisces is the last stop on the zodiac. After that, we start a new cycle. So there's a lot of cleanup, I think, that's going to happen with Saturn in Pisces. And, again, going back to even, the sexuality dynamic, which is very sensitive, because, even down to the Kiki Palmer situation, like, the sexuality component is really a sensitive area for people when you speak about women showing up in the world, wearing certain clothing, expressing their identities, their personalities. And it's like, I know people get irritated. They're like, what are you trying to say? A woman can't twerk? A woman can't wear a see-through outfit? It's like,
Because it, 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 right? It, it's the vicariousness. It's like I've been suppressed. I've been told what I can't do. So me seeing these women doing it for me, I'm gonna applaud that, and I'm gonna, hold them down against any detractors. That's almost what it seems like. That you really can't have an opinion because you don't know who you offending, because women are actually looking at them to say, that's my liberation and doing things that I wish I was doing, or I had either the wherewithal, the willpower, you know what I'm saying, or in some of their cases the permission, whether that is
or
internally or externally,
the other
to
argument
literally
for
show
someone
their
like me,
ass.
what people would say,
And I'm using
because I'm an artist, they'll
that
be
as
like,
a
well, you're just a hater because you're not on the main stage twerking like this artist. You're being a hater. And so it's like you said, either, you know, you you can't win when you talk about female sexuality if you're not advocating what these particular artists are doing. I mean,
Like I said, I watched Lauren set at Essence. She had on a beautiful blue dress. She looked like she dressed up for Mardi Gras and missed it by a few months, but she was beautiful, right? You know, the crowd was, they was there, but was they into it? I really can't tell. But when Megan had her set, the women brought their babies and everything there because their babies want to see Megan.
but what does
Right?
that mean? What is that suggesting? If you know, women want their girls to watch City Girls or want their daughters to watch, like, what is that really saying about women? Have we really seen the divine feminine?
It also says, it says that they was raised by hip hop as well, and now these are children of hip hop parents, and not everybody got the education or the message that we got getting raised by hip hop. Like I said, I frequent a lot of these areas. So I was frequenting Miami in the late 90s, early 2000s in the hood, right? I know what comes out of that soil. I was down here in Atlanta, you know, since Freaknik and beyond. I know how sexuality metamorphosized this entire region, changed everything. You know what I'm saying? I was in New York during the Dipset era in Harlem. I was in New York during the Puffy era. I was in New York during the Tunnel era, right? I could tell you the story about people through sexualization, how we have been sexualized and it changes who we are as a people. You know what I'm saying? So, yeah, I think that these young women, once again, like I said, who went to these schools, who are part of these, that come from these regions of our country, that this is what they get down to. They grew up on Boosie. They grew up on Lord knows what. They grew up on Cash Money. I understand the culture of Louisiana. They got little 8-10-year-old boys twerking. Like, this is part of their culture. It's too late to scale this shit back because grown folks, right, already have this programmed in a motherboard. So we would have to get hit with a one of them the EMPs or something, the shit that resets your whole, it wipes your motherboard, and we gotta reset shit from the beginning. So these women are, they were raised in hip hop, a spectrum of it that we might not agree with, right? These are the same women that are raising these children. Or these children have been raised by the radio, or these children have been raised by the internet, or these children have been raised by the culture, or these children are being raised in their classrooms or in their social circles. So a lot of it is too far gone to just pull back just by us saying we don't agree with it. It's a lot deeper than that at this point. How do we get in front of it? How do we get in between it? And if this is something that's moving through someone's blood, right? What makes their blood jump? The music, the vibration. How do you become an intercessor with something that is at somebody's epigenetic level? They like, I got it from my mama. She was in the club twerking the motherfucking juvie when he was talking about back that ass up. I see Juvie on Tiny Desk. I mean, these niggas don't have no shame.
But Blue, yes, it is in the bloodstream. It's in the genes, as you said right now. But at the same time, and because Pisces or music is used, Pisces is the side of, where the subconscious mind and mysticism. So that's why music is used to influence. Music is used. Politicians don't have as much influence as a rock star or a hip hop star. Everybody knows music is the way that it's spinning. I don't know. Music is a medium. So if we want to keep
Music is the
people
medium.
from tapping
Yes.
into the greatest portions of themselves so that they do transform their lives, then transform their families, then transform their communities, we have to keep them in their reptilian brains. We have to keep them in their sacral chakras, and the music is the best way to do it. I know you're saying it's like a part of who we are on a genetic level, on a cellular, microcellular level. You want to, you know, when you hear Cash Money Records taking over for the 9-9, you know exactly what position to assume, right? But but you and I have a different framework that we can reference for how we function as human beings. We're talking about people that are locked in a certain trajectory with respect to their consciousness and their mindset. That is is weaponry. I hate to, no, you know what? It is what it is. And honestly, the reality of where we are now is that because you get on your knees and arch your back and bend over and twerk, is that divine womanhood? Is that the ultimate expression of divine womanhood? That's not the ultimate embodiment of womanhood just because you twerking. Twerking is just one particular dance. In some cultures it's a dance. In some cultures it's just something, it's just expression of just having fun or whatever. It has different meanings I've seen in different cultures. Even in West Indian culture. We know this, like, we know how they get down, like at the
Down. And the babies get down. They get down from the age of babies. If you're old enough to bend the spine, you expect it to whine. And as crazy as it may look, you know what I'm saying? It is part of the culture. It is what it is. And I don't want to take the position where I'm telling women what they should or should not be doing. I also understand my role as it comes to that I am just an observer who has an opinion, and you know what I'm saying? But at the end of the day, it's like, I'm not a woman. You feel me? So they're like, would you? No, I wouldn't want to see my niece doing that. No, I wouldn't want nobody calling my mother a bitch. You know what I'm saying? But I also understand that,
you understand that it's synonymous with being so-called black at this point, right? It comes with the territory.
Comes with territory, and it's part of the culture. And I'm wishing on a star. You feel me? I'm wishing on a star. So if my niece never does twerk, there's more so something wrong with her than there is something, you know what I'm saying? Like, what's
The
wrong with her?
problem
She
is
all
you
right?
are
You need to get a
surrounded
head check.
by individuals in a society of people who are not operating. The majority are not operating in terms of their consciousness. So when you mix low vibrational mindsets and behaviors with sexual ignorance, you have a community of people who are in a very, very detrimental state. The sexuality is not the problem. It's all the other elements that we're dealing with and we're facing that are coming toward us as a people that are put in place. Sexuality and music is just a vehicle for what the ultimate goal is, which is to wipe us out. I mean, that's just the bottom line. So we can't, it's like you can't ignore this artist or that artist being used as a token or being used as a representative to promote a specific agenda.
But like I said, based on my travels to these regions, you know what I'm saying? Like, again, it's so much a part of their culture. You cannot convince them that they're being used because they're volunteering to be used. They want to put points on the score, you know what I'm saying, on the board. The people who are perpetuating the things that you're speaking about are people that look like us. They're members of our own family. So there's no way to avoid a civil war to get certain things back to where we need them to be. And what we're grappling with and dealing with is brand identity, right? We are fighting an identity war, image war, and this is global. You know what I mean? And that's what's at stake. What's at stake is our good name. You know what I'm saying? Our good name as a brand. In certain places, our brand name is in the toilet, right? Because we have bad brand ambassadors. We have bad representatives. You know what I mean? How can we peacefully tell that nigga, sit down, your job, yeah, you was just a brand ambassador for a season, and that season been up for a minute. So let me get that pass, that badge, let me get that laminate from you. You
So
know what I'm saying?
basically, you saying
We're gonna
niggas is
send you to
hard-headed
the green room and just chill, like,
and
yeah.
stubborn, and they're locked in a certain way of thinking and functioning, and that's a fact.
I
Like,
mean, it beyond. But I mean, yeah, our elder teachers told us that the Negro is stiff-necked, hard-headed. You know what I'm saying? And if you're not busting their head open, it's almost impossible for you to communicate with them because they only understand that level of aggression, because the concept of a nigger is something that has been breeded in the lab of the wilderness of North America. So that pedigree of individual, they don't understand reasoning. They're not a
that's a
reasoning people.
very strong statement too.
Put Diddy on them. You got to go over the cross their head with a bottle of champagne just to get their attention.
I definitely agree with you
They'd
that
be
there
like, "What
has
we
to be certain
doing?"
strategization to really. I mean, we're in the 11th hour. We're in the 11th hour at this point. I think some messages will see through, and some won't. Some changes will occur. Some won't. I just think that one of the things I do agree with you that there's a heavy rebellion and stubbornness. But I think one of the main issues is that people are really heavily unaware of what they're facing. I don't think, I think that when you call it, this is my life, this is my culture, this is my upbringing, this is my surroundings, this is who I am, but you don't really know what's facing you coming down the pipe. You don't really know exactly. It's just like, this has happened in several cities recently, whether you're at a block party for 4th of July in Philly or block party 4th of July in Baltimore, and 28 people end up shot. It's like, yeah, that's a part of the culture, but it shouldn't be.
And right. And I was making this observation. I made a statement on my page the other day. This was during, oh damn, ironically, it was Father's Day. It was Juneteenth weekend, and we were at a Juneteenth festival. And we were doing a live with Brother Rich, and I asked the audience, I said, have y'all ever been to a conscious event that had an incident? And I said, I can't recall me being to one. The only one that I could recall was all the way back in the 90s when I used to go to Harlem Week. And this probably was like 92. They shot it up, right? And they would always shoot up events in Harlem because the crack shit was seeping in. So this is when the niggas was encroaching upon things that cultural people do as a community. They're supposed to be non-inclusive of things that niggas do. So I was like, let me not even put this post up, because it probably, the minute you say something hasn't happened, then it happens. And lo and behold, 15 minutes after I put that post up, they shot up a Juneteenth event in Illinois, right? So the other day I was just thinking about how they used to shoot up gatherings with families and babies and everything. They used to just do it. They would shoot up black parties in New York like it was nothing. And then I started seeing it in the news this past week, like these past 2 weeks. And I was like, damn, we doing that again? Like, people is shooting up block parties with children and families that are there just enjoying themselves. And I'm like, yeah, it's definitely taking root, you know what I mean, and taking place again. And I was like, I've been to events where it's thousands of people and we don't even have police or security there. This is a spirit that comes amongst us as a community when we gather, that even though we have our own difficulties, there really don't be no violence. Like there's really nobody in the community or no incidents that we could speak of where somebody got killed. Or you know what I mean? There's a lot of cutthroats in our community, but we can't speak to a degree where somebody got lined up and sent up necessarily. So I'm like, so that's enough to show us that it can be done. The peace is possible because it exists as in a semblance. It exists minutely amongst us as a people, as a community, but we can speak about the peace that we share when we come together, even if people is being fake. You know what I'm saying? The ancestors is there. The energy is still protecting us from ourselves. You know what I mean? And we don't fall into that. So we got to start demanding more of one another as a community. You know what I mean? But we have to rival the elements in the community that are keeping the community hostage, to keeping the community sabotaged. Until our people see what we're willing to do or what sort of fight that we're willing to put up to no longer fight, you feel me? Then I think that our kindness will be taken for advantage and weakness and, you know, the craziness amongst us, because this time is, you know, there's a lot of mental illnesses is off the Richters. You know what I'm saying? So we, you know, we just wishing on a star just to say things should be happening a particular way, but we're not actively involved in every step of the way to make sure that it is doing what we intended to do. We're being so intentional that we like, nah, you got to take this from A to Z, because the minute that you slip, the minute that you sleep, something's going to creep. You know what I'm saying? And then return our people back to that state where they're applauding their own destruction. Because it's like, all right, they shooting up these neighborhoods. What music is playing? Are you playing drill music? Because if you're playing drill music, you're
not only applauding
energy.
your destruction, you're summoning it.
You're summoning it, yes. Right? You're conjuring at this point for death and destruction to be amongst you, to be present with you. And then you're what? Then the libation aspect of it. So there's two meanings in the definition of the word God in the dictionary. One is to invoke and the other is to pour libations. You feel me? We be at these events summoning the God of destruction, invoking it and pouring libations to it. And
it's like the sexuality component that we were speaking about. Like you said, it's cultural expression. It's pretty much commonplace through the community, but irresponsible sexuality leads to a whole slew of spiritual, psychological, and emotional illness in the community, whether you end up in family court because, you know, you aligned with someone and neither one of you had the emotional maturity or the financial stability or whatever the component is. I mean, when we're listening to these songs and they're talking about WAP and this, that, and the third, and none of these factors are discussed in the song. But we have seen videos where Cardi B said, turn off WAP when my daughter comes in the room. So everybody has limits. You know, when you're rational thinking, you have limits and you know what is acceptable, what is toxic, and what is not. And I think what you're saying is that toxicity is so normalized that it becomes a debate, almost like, what do you mean? This is what I grew up on. What do you mean? You got your 6-year-old daughter watching women gyrate on the floor, and that's the image that you want your 6-year-old daughter to have burned into her psyche? I know that that's common. I know, but I guess what I'm saying, you know, and I told it, right.
The 6-year-old is twerking. So it's, I mean, again, we putting ages on it. We talking, because hip hop is what it is. We talking from the womb to the tomb. The children are exposed from the belly, not from 5 or 6. They're exposed when they're in amniotic fluid. They're exposed from the belly. let alone from birth. They be in the baby seat and the music is on, right? I mean, again, because we're reaching back to a time before when we could remember when they were standing. Yo, turn that off. You know what I'm saying? My baby's in the car. Remember, a child don't speak until they spoken to, and there was just certain. I got smacked for singing "Sexual Healing," and I'm like, damn, it was on the radio. How you smack me? What I do? You don't know what that's about. You're supposed to repeat
Yep.
that. Bow.
I played Prince with the song. He was talking about Darling Nikki with she was masturbating. I got in trouble for playing that record when I was cleaning my room.
Oh, that's a fact. That's a fact. My pops was even like, yeah, that Darling Nikki, that's not even Dirty Diana wasn't even a go. I was like, damn, come on, son. He's like, nah, you gotta, until you can understand what these things are about. You know what I'm saying? I don't want this seeping into your consciousness. My father wouldn't let me play with G.I. Joes because he said it was conditioning young black men to go to the army. And as crazy as I thought that he was at the time, I have a full appreciation for his parenting now. I mean, it didn't just kick in. Like when I was of age enough to get where he was, when I seen my friends becoming motherfucking patriots and G.I. Joes and gung ho, I was like after 9/11, these niggas went to suit and boot. I was like, okay, I see where he was. I see where he was going with that. You know what I'm saying? I see where you were going with that, and it wasn't popular at the time. So, parenting is not popular at all times.
Your
You're not
children are
supposed to
not
be
your
a good
buddies.
guy all
Your
the
children are
time.
not your buddies.
And that's another thing. Yeah. Again, because we were raised in hip hop, and hip hop is a youthful expression, and the fact that we have not grown up with hip hop, and it hasn't aged to a degree where we see what grown hip hop look like, right? We are all growing up in hip hop, but if you're still arriving like it is a youthful sport, then you're treating your children like they're the homies, and that's not the way to parent these children. You don't want to be the popular, you know what I'm saying? Oh, me and my C hang out and you feel me? Now y'all go to the tunnel together.
Listen,
What are you doing? Chill, son.
now
Like,
Blue, okay, it's all entertainment, it's all fun. We listen to the radio, we know these songs. I'm gonna take my 10-year-old, my 6-year-old to this concert and watch them twerk because that's sex, right? But sex and money is the same frequent. That's the same spectrum, right? A-Tau Scorpio, right? So let's put the sex aside. You would
Scorpio
take
talk
your kid to a concert
axis.
that like they're your homie, and let's go watch. To talk about WAP, and let's watch them twerk, and let's watch them put their booties on each other. But would you give your 6-year-old, your 10-year-old, your 8-year-old your credit card and say go to the mall and just come back, buy whatever you want? No, you would protect your bank account. You would protect your bank account and your
And you
material
trust them with that.
assets
Yeah.
before you would protect the mind and the psyche, that impressionable psyche of that child who does not have experience or knowledge in the world. That doesn't make sense. You can't protect material items more so than you would protect the person that's carrying on your bloodline. I sound judgmental? Do I sound judgmental, Blue?
No, you sound like you're making sense. But that perspective, that analogy, you know what I'm saying, has to be, you got to package and present it and put it in front of people for them to actually see it. Because it resonated strong the minute you said it. I'm like, they would not give their plastic to their children. They're going to be tripping over they saving accounts, but you wouldn't want to save your baby's consciousness from having the ability to give her the proper sexual education, because that same womb, is going to bring forward your grandchildren that's going to be responsible for carrying your legacy. I don't think our people think that far into the future to begin with, and they don't value life.
Cardi
They
B
don't
knew.
value
Cardi B
legacy.
knew. She
You know what I'm
turned
saying?
the music
We
off,
just out here. She comes from,
but
ironically,
she makes
she comes
music
from a
for
different
our
culture.
culture.
That's the overlaying culture, right? the culture that her parents belong to, right? Because we come outside and outside is neutral. But them buildings that make up outside, like me, I grew up in Flatbush, right? So on my block and on my building, Eddie Winthrop, you had Trinidadians, Jamaicans, Haitians, Guyanese,
Mm-hmm.
Asians, Puerto Ricans, Dominicans, right? Cubans, and everybody's household had different criteria and set of rules and mores and customs and all of that
Mm-hmm.
stuff. When we came outside, it kind of got meshed and melded together. And whatever can, stand up to the scrutiny of people laughing at your shit, you will hold that down. But you pretty much was breaking yourself when you came outside to get with the program. So those things are still, baked into some of the children. She must have had that baked into her consciousness, because she did speak about her upbringing, and I think that her grandmother and them, like they was putting concepts and ideals and
Mm-hmm.
all of that stuff into her mind. Then she got to the streets and the streets took her over. So yeah, she might be parenting from that same place of remembering where she was parented from. You know what I'm saying? But
Well,
again,
what it speaks
that
to
balance,
is
because
that
she's out here raising other people's children.
your representatives and your heroes choose money over the preservation of the community. They are put in position. They're put in position to represent certain ideals,
But
certain
again,
practices, certain mindset in front of the collective, and that is what they're hired to do. That is what they've agreed to do, but they do not bring that to their own. So what is that?
and
What is that saying? Like, we gotta.
but again, let me remind you, right? They come from a dynamic in the culture where, if you look at the community, the people that we herald and hold up did the same thing, right? They traded the community in for $1 by saying, yeah, I'm going to push whatever narcotic is in at the moment to come up, so I confront and stun on you to make you feel even more lesser than you already feel with the program with his foot on your neck. So the signaling that they're getting is based on the cultural dynamic where they're like, fuck it. Like, people already threw their hats in and don't have no discretion. Look what they're willing to do to come up in the community. Why should I be any better? You feel me? If the dominant hierarchy, the strongest ones amongst us, chose to sell us out for the bag, right? The ones that are children looking at this, growing up, observing it, they
It's a
like, shit, I
vicious
can't wait for
cycle.
my opportunity.
Somewhere, somewhere, I know
We
people,
should,
and that's why people.
somewhere we got to take responsibility and not just continuously saying they. Yeah, they're going to sign the artists up. Yeah, they're going to throw money at the artists. Yeah, they're going to promote it. But we champion it. We consume it. We know exactly what to do with it when they give it to us. You feel me? The companies, the corporations ain't sitting up there making dances to the shit and all that. They just like, we know you niggas better than you think that we do. We studied y'all. So we know that you like slop. So we're going to feed you slop. We know that this shit that is concentrated, y'all don't have the digestion for that. You know what I'm saying? Nor you don't know how to masticate your food. You don't want to chew 22 times for the shit that got nuggets in it. You want to swallow, pause. You know what I'm saying? You want to go through the drive-through. You want to do all of the things that you have been socially conditioned to do with everything else that you feast on, because music ain't no different. You eat with your eyes, you eat with your mouth, and you eat with your ears. And they know this as social scientists. So they like, look what else y'all falling for. The music is gonna be no different. But
That's it.
they know the science of vibration, and they know the science of, the esoteric elements, and they know Mao Zedong said, show me your music and I'm gonna show you the people, right?
Ironically,
So
who
if
has
we, you know what I mean? And
publicly
again, we
been speaking in such a way where he's projecting himself to be more conscious and aware than most artists that I've heard recently? Bobby Shmurda. Bobby Shmurda has publicly said, I do not listen to hip
I,
hop.
I've been hearing him. I was thinking about him earlier today when I was walking, and I was hearing the interview, and he ain't sound like the Bobby Shmurda I've ever heard. He was like, I made my investments. You know what I'm saying? I have things, I receive residuals from my investments. Like, he studied the game when he was incarcerated. He learned about contracts and everything. And he came out here and implemented those things. And I was just like, this is an anomaly. You feel me? Just to hear him talk and how quote unquote smart and intelligent this young man
Did
sounds
you hear
about
him
knowing the
recently
system
say
that he
why
was once an
he
active
goes and speaks to the
participant in.
juvenile, the teens in the juvenile home? He said, because by the time you talk to them when they're in jail, they're adults. He's like, no, get them when they're young. Did you see that recent interview?
I saw that. He said, me and Mike Tyson come from the same place, which is juvenile, meaning that when they go to, DFY and all of these places, these juvenile facilities create a level of recidivism in these youngsters where they grow up in the system. So if you don't catch them before they get out DFY and go to state prison, to go to an adult prison and start learning the culture of prison, learning the culture of being institutionalized, if you don't catch them as children, you've lost them. And yeah, I felt that the fact that he said such a thing and was standing on it, I was like, that was dope. I would love. I think I need to interview this young man because he's talking that talk. Imagine if we can galvanize a movement of speakers that goes to these juvenile facilities, and because if you're not catching them at that age, if you're not mentoring them, before they turn, what I'm saying, 14, 15, 16. I mean, listen to the ages of these young drillers. They're
That
killing at the age of
Baltimore,
10, 11,
that
12.
recent mass shooting where 28 people were shot, 2 died, an 18-year-old and a 20-year-old died, and 28 people were shot. They most recently, the first person that they arrested was a 17-year-old. So so when I saw Bobby Shmurda speak recently about how he's like, no, I've got to go into these juvenile homes where I came from, like you said, him and Mike Tyson. But then there's also another clip going around where he's explaining why he does not listen to hip hop, because he said these people are horrible actors. Everything that they're selling you, that they're promoting and reflecting, kind of like what we were speaking on a few minutes ago, they do not uphold. He said, so it's the lack of integrity for me, basically. So Bobby Shmurda, sometimes ironically, like they say in these times, I see you quoting scripture a lot. So you might, the exact scripture I'm referring to. Somewhere in Revelation talks about how in this time you'll see a lot of false prophets, and you have to kind of know. So sometimes the person you least expect to be representing a certain set of ideals. To hear Bobby Shmurda say, I'm not going to be deceived. See, like you said, these other people, that's the culture. They're sucking it in through their eyes, their mouth, their ears. They're absorbing it as Pisces. Pisces at osmosis, where you look up and next thing you know, you've been influenced. That's where influencer, it's the same. Things just hit you and you didn't even realize it. So he's saying, no, I'm not even going to absorb that into my subconscious. And I said, wow, is this the Shmurda dance, dude? Like, what? Whoa. You know what I'm saying? So be on the lookout. You never know who the real prophets are. You never know who the fugazis are in these times. You got to have an open and active pineal gland, because you'd be surprised.
You're going to be surprised. It's going to come from the least expected, and that's what's up. I appreciate the the diversity. I appreciate being caught off guard. I appreciate all that. Like that's what makes this thing so dope. And I think Bobby's a Leo.
I'm gonna look up. You know, funny
if
thing,
I'm
I've
not
never seen
mistaken.
his chart.
You know what I'm saying?
I wanted to get pick your brain. I wanted to pick your brain a couple of weeks ago. I meant to message you and get your opinion on it. Because when you guys had the whole dialogue going about Scarlet a couple of weeks ago, and it created all of this back and forth between people. And
Yes.
so what I was thinking on a whole separate, outside of, you know, whether or not you like the single, the one single that's out or not, what I really observed, this is just my observation. Scarlett, if I were to put her on one end of the spectrum, the opposite end of that same spectrum to me would be LaRussell. This is, now I'm explaining to you why. This is what I want to get your opinion and pick your brain about this. So from what I observed from watching Scarlett, I do follow her on social media, so I see the consistent posts, and I observe the visuals, which denote there's been a shift. Like she was started out, I guess, kind of like humble beginnings, maybe like from an urban environment, obviously wearing a scarf. She got her name from enduring, you know, abuse, domestic abuse or family issues, kind of struggling. And then now being transformed over a number of weeks, where now the clothes have designer name tags, the hair changes often. It's like, you know, almost like a Cinderella kind of story. Like, you know, that kind of like the, you know what I mean? Like, I don't want to say rags to riches. I'm not going to imply that the young lady was raggedy. But now it's like my boots are Balenciaga. I'm at the Met Gala with one song, right? Which is cool. Like, so what it implied is that she was pulled from these humble beginnings, kind of independent artist out there floating, doing her thing as a Bronx drill artist, from what I heard when I heard the earlier material, and then kind of being pulled up from these industry folks, and these industry folks stamping her, the industry veterans stamping her, like the older, like Busta Rhymes and Jada Kiss people are seniors to her. So it's kind of like this idea of still being pulled out of, you know, sort of challenging circumstances and then getting signed, going through the mainstream media, going to the mainstream channels, excuse me, the major labels. She kind of went that route. Oh, you know, the video of her signing with Sony or whatever company that was. LaRussell, on the other hand, you said with Epic, like it's going through those mainstream channels of signing to a major label, signing over your art. And now that I've gone through these mainstream channels with these major celebrities and I'm with this major corporation, now my clothes are better. Now my hair is done. Now I'm more fashionable. So it kind of denotes this idea that was kind of fading away, because with the advent of social media, the independent artist was saying, I'm in control of what I put out to the people. I'm in control of expanding my fan base. But with her, it was like, nope, the major labels will save you. You go LaRussell on the opposite end, who drops knowledge on a consistent basis about how he completely avoided that route, right? And you follow me? LaRussell, he's completely, he recommends to artists to not go that route. He tells his personal stories about how he purposefully didn't go that route. And he's like the poster child for independent success. Scarlett pops up and it's like, no, don't forget the major labels. They can save you. The major labels can change your whole life, change your wardrobe. It's like they're on two opposite ends of a spectrum, because that whole idea of signing to one of those three companies, that was dying out. People go directly to their audience through TikTok. People go directly to their audience through Instagram. The independent artist has really had an opportunity to grab their career by the reins. And LaRussell has given people gems, tools, strategies. That's his whole platform, primarily. So she kind of popped up, in my opinion, as the counter view to what LaRussell represents. Almost like the major labels, like their last attempt. Then Vlad exposes that she's unaware of exactly what she has done and what contracts and agreements she's made on a business level. LaRussell has been telling people to avoid what Vlad exposed to her about the business moves she made. Do you understand what I'm saying? So I had a whole different view of Scarlett outside of get the fuck out of New York. You know what I mean? It was like, this is somebody who's now a poster child for major labels who were dying. Major radio stations are dying. We can stream now. So,
and you know, I'm gonna say something controversial, but it's worth being said because my observation of her at me initially seeing her was that she needs intervention. She needs a hug. Before we put this young lady on a national platform, let's not make this mistake again. I fuck with DMX, but I'm also, you know, critical of what he represented at the time and the way that he was packaged and presented. Where it's like that was dysfunction, and he's telling you that he's dysfunctional. He's telling you that he's having this inner struggle with good and evil to a degree, angels and demons for real, for real. I mean, my nigga was a full-blown black crackhead. You know what I'm saying? And I guess everybody knows that. You know what I mean? But it's like, is the speakers of, you know, everybody's homes the place where this person should be working out these inner struggles, that these inner demons that he didn't deal with, that ultimately came back to consume his career, and everything around him was engulfed in flame? Because I know the stories, right? The behind the scenes shit, the locking niggas up.
are you saying that? Are you saying that because of the comparison people made
I know
between
the horror
her
story.
and him?
So I mean, yeah, she's a female version of what he represented when he came during the shiny suit era, when things were stale and it needed a jolt, and it was just so much fugaziness taking place that somebody needed to sound the alarm. That's what she represents to me.
I have to ask you, DMX is, aside from him being very spiritually, like, he was very much, DMX was almost a preacher, right? Because that's what, even with the drug abuse, DMX was very passionate about his relationship to God. And
yeah. I've seen this young lady make overtures in public for help because she wants to explore her spirituality. I have seen that with my own two eyes. You know what I'm saying? I myself personally have not slid in her DM to offer her, you know, any services or what have you. I would rather run into her, you know, physically somewhere in New York where I can have a conversation with her. But I felt that she needed some intercession, some sort of, she needs a hug before she gets a contract, because we're just empowering trauma, we're just empowering dysfunction once again all over, and you think you're gonna get something different. So they, you know, she represents, you know, abuse, right? And you can use somebody that's abused if they have not gone through all of the processes to know that you can't cover abuse over with tangibles. She's not in that phase yet. She's still entertaining the fact that she can cover her abuse over with the shit that she sees other people masking their abuse with. So she just want to get in the game to go along with the same thing that she's seen everyone else do, until she realized that shit don't work. And then she's gonna be like these other artists that have these midlife crises where they break down. Like, damn, you got millions in the bank and you still, you know what I'm saying? You still emotionally unstable. You still a piece of work. You still wrestling with your demons. Cause my nigga, like DMX had he had a lot of bread in the bank. And my nigga was carrying on in a hotel room like, you know, nickel store crackhead. So it's not the material possessions. That shit has no bearing. Same way that these dudes is on lean and pill popping and waking up, and they'll wake up to millions in the bank account. And the money can never fill the void for the trauma that they still are popping the drugs to become numb from, right? They're never getting to the treatment and never dealing with the issues. So it's the same thing with her, right? She's gonna speak to all of these young ladies who are in group homes, all of these young ladies who are claiming fives, who picked up their flag, who are banging in New York, all these young ladies who are cutting on themselves, all these young ladies who are sexually confused about which way to tether, right? She's going to become the champion for them because her pain. Her pain is magnetizing. You can't ignore it. When her shit come on, you can't filter it out. You have to pay it some attention. So New York represents major labels. We can't think about any artist out of New York that went independent, right? Necessity is the mother of all inventions. So La Russell is utilizing the model that was set forth by JT the Bigger Figure and exemplified on a global stage by people like E40. So Vallejo or the Bay Area, right? They again, they prime their artists to become independent and to take independent routes because that's what they had to do because the music industry did not exist in Vallejo or the Bay Area at that time when they would like to have gotten contracts. But then E40 showed them and JT the Bigger Figure showed them in the early 90s, like, oh nah, you can become a millionaire by going out the trunk hand in hand. You feel me? So she just becomes the latest iteration or an example of what New York hip hop has to offer. And the only thing New York hip hop has to offer is a contract to bolster the companies and the corporations
When
who
La
have
Russell gave
colonized
you a
hip
whole
hop
template
on
on
the East
why you
Coast.
shouldn't do that and why you will benefit from not doing it. So she came up like she popped up almost
Yeah,
as like she was
but
intentionally. I mean, I think when you
every
do,
squad they call that industry plants. And Ice Spice is the industry plant. I don't really, you know what I'm saying? And yeah, when Scarlet started popping, it was everywhere. And it felt like it was industry supported, but it was. Swiss Beat was the one who was orchestrating and you know what I'm saying, pulling the plays behind the scene. He put on Fun Flex. I read what she said. That's what she said. And then it was a rap, you know, hitting different stages, right? But none of these guys who we're speaking about out of New York, none of them are independent artists. Even when they were major artists, none of the things that we know them from, even if they went independent after becoming major, we can't speak to that. Nori to this day, champions, right? People getting signed to labels and he got jerked, right? I think it was the 25th or the 27th year anniversary for his solo album yesterday. He got jerked. He don't have no positive stories to tell about his solo career as it pertains to his relationship with labels, but he still advocates to this day on Drink Champs to sign contracts and don't know nothing about his contract. And it's the same thing with her. She don't know nothing about contracts, right? But you want to be an artist and you call yourself a hustler. That should be the real conversation. How do all of these hustling ass niggas get out hustled by a 5-foot Jewish
when it's
man with motherfucking hook
artists
nose,
left
and
and
we're supposed to
right
be the gangster?
going viral without them. We live in a. She didn't. I'm not saying she didn't have to do that. I'm not saying that when Swiss Beats DM'd her, she should have ignored
Look,
him. I'm not saying that, but this whole initiative, like, oh, these artists are
right.
taking their careers into their own hands. They're going on TikTok viral. They're putting their own shows together. This major label fantasy is dying, and there came Scarlet to, like, while it was on the respirator, it was like, you know what I'm saying?
But I think that that's more so Ice Spice. Ice Spice is the artist that came out of nowhere with no talent to sign to a major that is getting the major push that no one can figure out. And she is more popular amongst these young women than I would say Scarlett is in terms of pushing or propelling them to maybe sign up. Like the shit that Ice Spice represents on the glamour side is gonna bring
Yeah,
more people
I
to
agree with you. Ice
contracts
Spice,
than maybe
yeah, that
a
rumor.
Scarlett
Yeah.
per se. You know what I'm saying? Because I listened to Scarlett's story and she was like, I did not get traction when I was over here doing this by myself independently. She was like, but when I made this song, I got traction. So what did her homies come and tell her? Right? Yo, we need you to be a reincarnation of Remy Ma on MOP Annie Up. And we're gonna make sure that if you got 4 or 5 or 6 club bangers, we're gonna push you through. And then she's looking at Cardi B, right? So you got to see who are these people looking at as their heroes. They're going to follow those templates. Cardi B got signed to a label, ain't put an album out in 5 years. So they like, yeah, I'm going independent. Not independent, I'm going with a major. New York don't have the hustle in them of a Lil Russell. New York don't got the hustle. Like I said, they became the prototypes of where hustlers came from. But outside of what Jay-Z did initially with him saying that he was going independent, even though I don't know how he was going independent if he was signed a priority, but that's a whole nother question, right? But the modification of contracts came by way of them at least having leverage with the moves that they made. Where, while I understand that Def Jam only had a distribution deal with them, they was getting 50%. Rockefeller was getting 85, right? And then, I mean, the real suppression of independence and artistry would be them suppressing Master P's independent movement going out the trunk when they gave Cash Money $30 million. That was suppression. That was putting the nip in the bud, because Master P could have did it. At one point, Drake could have did it. I remember when the conversation. Look, I'm old enough to remember when the conversations on the corporate side of things, when I was in the music industry, the conversations that the corporations was having, they was terrified.
Yeah, I
If
remember
there's like, if
that.
Drake goes independent, then it's a wrap, right? The music industry was on the ropes because they didn't understand the internet at that time. I remember because I was up at Epic working the project with Nipsey, and we was up there giving them secrets on how to work the internet, right? And that's when I heard Drake's tape, his first tape in 07, when he had a mixtape before the famous mixtape. It was when he was a backpack rapper.
Real nice.
He was a backpack rapper, and he was nice. And they knew he was nice, and they was terrified. And it was like, if he chooses to use the internet to just go independent as an artist, he's gonna set a trend, and we're never gonna be able to catch up. They were speaking about him back then, like, oh, we know that he's gonna be the next one. And he hadn't even been signed yet or put the new project out. The So Far Gone mixtape, I mean. He hadn't even put that out yet. So they be knowing. They be watching, and they be looking. But ironically, as we can see, no New York
Well,
artist
the crazy
ever got
thing is
successful
that
on the
I've
independent route.
definitely heard the same information you heard about Ice Spice allegedly being a industry plant. Even the story of how she went to see Drake to have a business meeting with Drake, and after that meeting, he didn't want to have anything to do with her, unfollowed her on social media. You know about that because this I don't know what came out. I wasn't there in the meeting, but whatever the story is, whatever came out of that meeting, whatever occurred. They just went separate ways, but there's been a lot of speculation based on numbers, promotion, etc. Like you said, just all of a sudden having an explosive career with no real foundation to refer to. They're like, okay, so you're right. She's definitely labeled as an industry plant more so than Scarlett is. But I think that with, let's just say, the Russell mindset, which you say is not a New York mindset, but New York, here's the irony, right? In terms of what's happening currently in New York, where the subgenres of Brooklyn drill and Bronx drill are defining the landscape of New York hip hop to the point where a lot of people have observed that Scarlett hasn't heard the one song that she has gotten this notoriety from. It hasn't gotten the attention that I saw one person speak about this publicly, that they don't feel that New York is galvanizing behind her and really kind of pushing this song as, I guess, being anthemic, like being that New York anthem to kind of like push a resurgence of a vintage New York hip hop sound. But the truth of the matter is, because she, from what I've observed, is a drill artist. Swiss Beats is not a drill producer, okay? But from what I saw, meaning when she, unlike Ice Spice, she has a series of videos that she can share that she did way back when she was just freestyling on TikTok or whatever, rhyming in front of a hot dog, rhyming in front of a pizza. We see this. Those freestyles are on drill production. She is a Bronx drill artist. Swiss Beats is not a drill producer, okay? So what I saw, that one song, This Is New York, or, you know, Move the Fuck Back or whatever, it's not a drill song, but from what I saw, she's a drill artist. They asked her her favorite 5 hip hop artists. She says Ice Spice. She speaks to her generation, right? So right now, here's the problem. I mean, I totally agree with you when you're saying the mindset in New York is not that of the independent hustler. But the issue is New York is now kind of, and Scarlett really pushed this issue to the forefront for me to see this in plain sight, that New York is finally having to come face to face, front and center with its identity issues, because the vintage traditional New York hip hop sound is not dominating the hip hop landscape in New York, despite Scarlett's song. Even with Scarlett's song, Bronx drill and Brooklyn drill are the two subgenres that have defined hip hop culture, music and culture in New York as of late. Now, if anybody wants to disagree with me, who's in New York or you've been in New York, that I, you know.
Right, which is funny because them old heads really look old. You got the locks on every show. You got Bust up there. No disrespect to Busta, none of them, but that's not the sound that none of these children are moving or gravitating to. This is not the pool that they play in. So we, once again, they're commandeering the stage in New York 50 for themselves. You know what I'm saying? For our generation, for old heads, but it's
the
not.
50-year-old,
the
50th anniversary celebrations,
you know
have been about commemorating the careers of the artists who dominated in the 90s and 2000s, or even earlier than the 90s. That's what I'm seeing. And I'm not saying they're wrong for that. I'm not saying they're wrong for that. I'm just saying that's the 50th anniversary was really an opportunity for a lot of artists from the last 40 years, really 30 to 40 years, to come back and kind of
get some show money to get their name and their face seen. You know what I'm saying? To show us how the music has aged, how they've aged. Like, this is our rendezvous with them. Some of them, it's gonna be our last time before they transition, because after that it's gonna be like, well, y'all in front of us for what? You know what I'm saying? The people are looking towards the children, and you know, the biggest artists in New York on their drill scenes, they're not available. They're either dead or in jail.
That's that Saturday and the 8th.
So it's Saturday and the 8th, right? Yeah, like they are being penalized and punished for the energy that they put out. So it seems. You feel me? Because they mess up, boom, they smack them right away. They're on their helmet in regards to cycling them up out of the game. You feel me? They cycle them up out of the game. They hitting them with Ricos, they running down on them, they getting them in and out. You know, the hotter they get, the more focus it seems that the authorities pay attention to them. and come cracking down. And it's like, do we want that energy proliferating through the community? Do we want that energy proliferating on every radio station that your children got to listen to when they get up to go to school? You know what I'm saying? I got nieces and nephews in New York, and I'm like, damn, like they're being exposed to a genre of music that's telling them that you got to have a
Spiritual
body in order
warfare.
to be cool.
The music is weaponized.
The streets is weaponized, though. The mentality of our people are weaponized. You know what I'm saying? The gangs are you know what I mean? We're being held hostage by an element in society that has no brakes. That has become the rule and not the exception. So there is a imbalance, right? That I can look at the music and say the music has something to do with it and plays a part.
Oh yeah.
But I will not set everything on the mantle of the music, or you know what I'm saying, lay the blame at the feet of the corporate handlers of these niggas who want to make this version of the the executives don't be in the studio with them. You know what I'm saying? The executives just sign off when somebody in the meeting room is like, yeah, that shit is crack, and they like, okay, how much is it gonna cost? I've been in those meetings. I'm telling you how it goes. Now, I've also been in the meetings, like I've been in the Nipsey meeting where it was a white woman in particular that was like, can he say bitch more? I've been in the meetings where they told Big U, if you get him to take off the Malcolm X chain, we'll buy him Cubans. I've been in those meetings. So it's not to say that they don't have, they're just like shit. It's like if a motherfucker's going down anyway, they just tacking shit on. They're like, you know what I mean? You already signed up to be self-destructive. We got you niggas over here from selling drugs. So what do we expect from y'all? And y'all not hustlers because you don't even know contract work. So we gonna jerk you over here.
Mm-hmm.
We see that you not the savvy gangsters that you said you are, right? Might as well put a bomb in your pocket and just, you know, kill 4 or 5,
Yep.
turn you into a suicide bomber. Might as well. Why not?
Well,
Like, why waste such an
well,
opportunity?
now the people, it gets to a point where
Just
the people
because,
crave
like,
they crave their own destruction.
people don't
They
even gotta.
crave it.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. They just getting in on the party. They like shit. These people are eating this up. They crave it. Why not put some sticks of dynamite in the cake? They even gonna party hardy if the cake blow up in their face. They're gonna find it funny. They're not gonna stop eating cake. They might even order more of it. So, and like I said, all of this is born out of the mistakes made during integration and going into drugs, not just crack cocaine. You know what I'm saying? But the whole experiment of what consciously a person will be willing to do to their neighbor, to their brother, their sister, or their mother, right? To come up. And the come up only equates to you, in your mind, equalizing yourself to white folks. That's all it means. Oh, I could buy this now, or I could live next to them. I could floss. You know, I grew up looking at Dallas the same way, right? Falcon Crest, Dynasty. You know what I'm saying? We were conditioned. We were being marketed to lifestyles of the rich and famous. Our aspirations were not liberation. Our aspirations was commercialism. It was capitalism. It was crass capitalism. We grew up in the 80s, right? Our hero was Donald Trump as a genre. Donald Trump and Madonna is responsible for this goddamn genre. From what people is grappling and wrestling with the feminine expression of sexuality and hip hop is a direct response from our women holding up Madonna and Marilyn Monroe as their heroes, right? And it interspersed with Coco Chanel and goddamn Donatella
Yep.
Versace. All right. And you get what you bargained for. So if that was the heroes, because these women are not modeling Grace Jones, they're not modeling Donna Summers, they're not modeling Tina Turner, they're not modeling Ella Fitzgerald. They're not modeling.
Aretha.
What what's the Queen of Soul? But they're not modeling none of that. That's not their models. That's not what they're expressing, right? They was raised on Cyndi Lauper, Madonna, and Marilyn Monroe, okay, as their heroes. And Madonna was the first one during the inception of hip hop where she was counterculture, just like us. And she was saying things about white folks that black people didn't feel like they could say yet. And she was totally demonstratable. So when I see her die and be brought back to life at the beginning of cancer season, and her being mother, her name is Mother. She's
Yes,
Queen
she is.
Esther in esoteric circles. She's a Kabbalistic priestess, and her name in Kabbalah is Queen Esther. But she's also called Mother on the LGBT scene for what she has done for that subgenre and opening the door to make it palatable. She was the first one with the dancers to make them a mainstay. You feel me? These are our people's cultural idols and heroes, the women in particular. You know what I mean? And it was like, as soon as I get to show my ass and express myself sexually based on this oppression that has come by way vicariously through the church, patriarchy, Papa who's preaching, right? I'm going to show up just like Madonna, because I have not seen any other examples of women who have done it like Madonna did it. That's what women are saying to themselves subconsciously. And I'm not a woman, so I can't necessarily tell you for sure, but I have a lot of conversations with them, and I'm very observant to say, oh, this what this is. I seen how it came out. You know what I mean? The minute that you know, a stage for expression was allowed to be made, I remember what them. I
Right.
remember that. I went to school with these women. It's not like I was looking from a distance. I was right here. I was right here. I know what they was doing before they got on in the staircases. I know what type of shorties they was. I remember us trying to give bags of clothes to Foxy Brown because she used to wear the same black and white $10 spring you know scrunchie. Yeah, I forgot the name of them, but they like these elastic plastic
You talking about leggings, not leggings, right? Oh, okay.
leggings. They was these black and white stretch leggings, and all of this conversation about all this design. And like you said, until the contracts came, until the money came from the majors, these are the people who they credit with saving their lives, because they were now allowed to play the game. You feel me? Of high fashion, of being here and doing this and spending bread and going out and getting, you know what I mean? All of these things that they
Mm-hmm.
aspired to because they saw the hustlers doing it, or they saw white folks doing it, or the hustlers patterning themselves after the white folks that were doing it. And then they became the young, impressionable minds who were looking at us busting plays, and they couldn't wait, you know what I'm saying, to throw their hat in the fray. But they didn't go through the necessary rigors, you know what I'm saying, the things that are needed for you to be responsible when you do get that position. So they got up there and started talking crazy. And to the point where Kim said in the interview that she dealt with body augmentation because she was the first one, and she patterned it after Pamela
Who are
Anderson.
both
I
my
remember
Cancerian
these
sisters, Pamela
conversations,
Anderson and
yo,
Lil Kim?
as a journalist. I, I remember these conversations with T. They was like, why did you do it, Kim? She said, because my father never told me that he loved me, and because the men that I was with made me feel like shit, and they was always slipping and sliding with light-skinned women, right? In the numerous conversations I would have with ex-girlfriends and friends of mine, you know what I mean? These are the things that they would tell me was impacting their consciousness and the decisions that they were making, how heavy-handed we were in school as young men, you know what I'm saying, on darker skinned women, and how lighter handed we was and friendlier we were to Keisha with the curly hair. Now, I can't tell them that they lying. I just had to, you know, be like, I had to to acknowledge it. I had to make an observation in my mind to be like, even if that's not what we meant, that's probably definitely what they saw. And they were getting signals about how to show up in order to be respected, because at the end of the day, we all succumb to our primal urges, and our primal urges at the end of the day is to mate. So we doing these mating dances. You feel me? What do she want out of me? She like, what do he want out of me? And we're all checking for one another, trying to figure this shit out. And not having honest conversations. So we're picking up these cues from here, cues from there, and then we show up and get criticized. You know what I'm saying? But I think all of us are working with the best that we've been given,
I
looking
agree
to be
with you,
chosen.
Blue. Everybody, we have a open side that we put in the light. We have a shadow, and everybody is battling some part of their shadow, working. Some of us, putting in the work to heal parts of our shadow. So yeah, so the effects of colonization, imperialism, institutionalized racism, internal racism, whether like you said,
Yeah. Internal. Yeah, let's be honest. We were not showing up for dark-skinned women. We were not showing up for women with naturals. We were not, right? And my father, one of the main reasons he wouldn't let us listen to hip-hop is, he said, because of the videos. He was like, none of them videos have representation of melanated women in it. He's like, all of them is light skinned with curly hair. And because he was so critical,
right,
I had to go and watch and see myself. And I was like, he ain't wrong. And then the shit that did for me was when Big Daddy Kane came out with I Work. That was the video that did it for me. That told me everything that I needed to know. Because I'm like, if Big Daddy Kane, with all of this self-righteous 5% conversation and talking shit, if he can't put a representation of what the black queen looks like, or the black goddess, then this shit has been compromised. And that video came out, and they was hella light skinned with curl, and the hair was hella curly, and the video was in HD. It was the cleanest video I had seen up until that point. I work, I get the job done, baby.
right.
And this is around the time the nigga was dating Madonna, so I'm getting the signals as an observer. I'm putting one and two together myself. And if my father wasn't there as a deterrent to say, this ain't what we finna do, right? Then I probably would have ran with that subconscious signaling to say, oh, they telling me I need a light-skinned girl with curly hair in order to be, you know what I'm saying? Because, they say that you're a pinnacle of a
Right,
star when
right.
men want to emulate you and women want to take you down. So as young men, we were emulating Big Daddy Kane. We wanted what he had. And if you are a social scientist and you know this, then you can screw with somebody's mind the same way that my mind could have potentially been screwed with. Oh, they're following him, right? They want what he want. They want to be him. Then let me make sure that every woman that I have on his arm is either light skin or white. And they're going to want the same
Mm-hmm.
thing because they're going to equate that with his flex.
Yep.
And it took place.
I mean, yeah, you right.
Feel
You
me?
right.
Shout out
Our
to
people have to take some sort of accountability for how we have treated each other, how we've shown up as representatives in the community. When you're on a platform, you're on a stage, you're representing ideals, you're representing a mindset to your people. So we can't blame, like you said, you can't blame everything on some executive. You can't. Like,
we cannot blame everything on the executive, because these concepts and ideals that I'm speaking about, these came from the neighborhood. Us having a preference for light-skinned Keisha with the curly hair, that's not something that the record labels taught us. That's something that was taught to us at the lunchroom table. You feel me? That's the socializing that we had from a community standpoint, first and foremost. That's what you seen just an observer when you seen niggas pull up to your school for light-skinned Keisha with the curly hair, right? And how they was willing to put the murder game down to protect their interests. So she just got a whole nother value based on what you're seeing. Oh, this is what it means to make it. This is what it means to show up. No other way am I gonna show up and be respected for
That's
that
another
wow
reason why
moment, that aha
Scar
moment?
Lips arrival on the
You
scene
know what I'm
is dope.
saying?
That's another
And
reason.
these things are
I definitely felt like, I mean, that's aside from music, but it's still about representation, right? I felt like,
she's a dark, yes, with textured hair,
mhm.
without, from what I could tell, any body augmentation. You know, and she's not speaking about she likes other women.
Well, I'm saying because she's you
She's talking
melanated.
about setting the
She's
dude
you
up and
melanated.
and getting
She's the dark. She's you melanated being as melanated as you can get. Feel melanated, of course, is reddish brown.
heavily.
You melanated is what we call the
Yes,
darkest black. So she's you melanated.
yes,
That I was happy about. I mean, I
yes.
ironically, like I try not to really set trip when it comes to these appearances per se, but what you're saying is real. I can't bury my head in the sand and act like that wasn't a real thing, that every video had the same type of woman. That was real for a minute. So
Every video had the same type of women. You know what I'm saying? These light skinned women with the curly hair. You know what I mean? And then they came out with J Lo and put her at the forefront as if no other melanated women knew how to dance or was, what about the other fly girls? You know what I'm saying? So we just kept seeing this in culture, and it signals something to us subconsciously. It speaks to us, and it reinforces stereotypes that we already have running in the back of our mind. Because we grew up in a society where the beauty standards was Farrah Fawcett, Brooke Shields, Marilyn Monroe, Madonna for some people, shit for some people when they was growing up, even Cyndi Lauper, right? Niggas was into that, right? But it was everything but our women. And those are things that you had to fight through. So if a brother show up coming through what we went through growing up, and he still has an appreciation for you melanin, for heavy melanated sisters, you know what I'm saying? Then you know that that's a real one. You know that person has control of their own mind, because the things we went through and the programming that we were subject to, you know what I mean? Yeah, it wasn't favorable towards heavily melanated women
Missy
in our
Elliott
community,
being
our
a unique
society,
exception
our history, or
because
anything.
for different reasons.
Like I said, Missy Elliott becomes a harbinger of change for a lot of things, right? You had to put respect on her name for everything that she represented. And the beautiful thing is that she didn't make any concessions to that. She was unapologetic in how you was going to
Mm-hmm.
respect her. And it was the same thing with Queen Latifah, right? And it ultimately becomes the same thing with MC Light. Don't question my sexuality. Don't question, you know what I'm saying, who I'm with and why I'm with them, or, you know, like they just got past, they got respect. So we can never say, oh, the respect was never there for women in hip hop, because that's not true. Because we could give you a few examples of women who've never been disrespected, and people knew that they was swinging for the other team and all of that, and still never called them out of their name, showed them the level of respect that's reserved and deserving of, I would say, all women in hip hop. But it's that familiarity factor. It becomes the same familiarity factor you see in the hood. Remember, Shorty don't give none to nobody that's in the neighborhood. They might be like, yeah, she thinks she all that, but she gonna be.
Oh yeah.
You gotta have a respect for her because there's still some level of mystique involved. But Shorty super familiar with everybody in the neighborhood, niggas ain't got no respect for her. Right? And you know the most intimate things about her. You've been inside of her universe. And you don't got no respect for her. She's a throwaway. You know what I mean? We got terrible names for her. But the one that seems aloof and way off, that is out of your reach because of the mystique factor, gotta respect her. So I do think that there's a power that comes with women's mystique factor, right? even though I'm not up here speaking about, you know, I I don't look at, I do look at women that twerk. I do look at women, you know what I'm saying, who show expressions of their body, and I have an appreciation for that. But I also know that I have a stronger attraction to when there's a mystique factor involved. That's just my personal
And there's
preference. I get
physiological
more
reasons for
excited.
that. That's not just an
You know what I'm saying?
opinion. There's biological reasons
Yeah.
and psychological processes in the male that justify why a man is more intrigued when the mystery is maintained. There's that's a whole other conversation about the physiological processes and the hormonal responses of a man. Right, right.
And it got
Once that
biological too.
vasopressin is
We
released,
could
that's a whole
we could
other
get into
topic.
it.
But
You know
when
what
the
I'm saying?
vasopressin is released after the male,
Yeah.
orgasms or climaxes, and then his interest declines. That's a whole nother topic. I know people. That's it. But you
No,
said
yeah,
something
and it's
so key
real.
that
Real
is
too.
relevant to this idea of, are we watching the divine feminine just because it's more female rappers, or are you seeing a bunch of females but not the divine feminine? That's a big, that's a major. You said that when he's entered her universe. So when the woman is a figure in hip
Yeah.
hop and her sexuality is demystified, her body is objectified. You know, it's Ice Spice. I don't think you've ever seen no video, no nothing where she didn't turn around and bend over. That's what she does in every. I'm not criticizing her. I'm making an observation that everything she does, she she turns around and bends over when she's performing concerts,
That's her
whatever. So
trademark. Yes.
I think what's happening, if we to kind of go back, along the discussion about spiritual warfare, when you have compromised the womb, which is the place from which we all came. Civilization comes out of that womb. So it's more than just, I'm gyrating for you because it's stimulating to watch, and this is a way to, excite you and get pleasure. No, I am the owner of the cradle of civilization. So when that has been objectified and the value of that has been diminished, now the entire community is compromised. Why? Because Elijah Muhammad said a nation can rise no higher than the woman. So you see how it's deeper than twerking? It's not me being the critical auntie that's like, you just don't want to see nobody twerking. No, I'm telling you that once the womb is compromised, which is, there would be no civilization without the womb. Everything begins in the womb. Everything begins with the woman and how she is the spark for all. None of us would be here if our moms didn't maintain her womb over those 9 months. So that's how the woman is powerful. So the question is, just because you see more women on the microphone, just because you see more women with tight shorts on bending over, are you seeing the divine feminine? Just because you're seeing women doesn't mean you're seeing the divine feminine. Just like if you see males doesn't mean you're seeing men. The male is just a gender assignment. A man comes about as a result of conscious growth and evolution.
With me, because I understand the power of a womb, I think that divinity exists in all women because of, you know what I'm saying, the station that they represent of being co-creators. There's spectrums with everything. You know what I'm saying? There's a lower spectrum, there's a higher spectrum. But I think that, yeah, the magnetism that a woman represents by way of her womb always leans her closer to divinity than always. She's always being reminded as to who she is, what her, her role in her assignment, potentially if she chooses to accept it is. But a woman is giving birth at all times, regardless of whether she gets that womb impregnated with sperm and gives a physical birth. She's always giving birth. Her mind is a womb. You know what I'm saying? She has 2 wombs, matter of fact. You know what I'm saying? So she's divine by nature, right? But that divinity can definitely be undermined. Just like I look at all of our people, I look at all of us, we're divine by nature, but we can
Divine
get
by
duped
nature,
into,
powerful by
you know what I'm
choice.
saying, doing other things. Yeah, right. Like in the lessons, they call the devil divine evil. You know what I'm saying? So, yeah. And the only way that you can extract or arrive at what's considered the devil, according to how the lessons teach it, if it came from us, then it is us. You know what I'm saying? And we are it. So there's spectrums that we end up at along that course. You feel me? We can be at our
Absolutely.
highest
But
divinity,
we're always
or we could be at a
divine.
low level of our divinity. You know what I'm saying? We're always divine and we're always divining. And the process of divining is always creating out of our creatrix, which is our mind, of which a womb is a physical manifestation or representation of this ethereal concept that doesn't have any physical representation other than the fact that we know that we manifest, meaning our mind. Like, where does it exist? How does it
I
operate?
don't, and I definitely agree with you.
You know what I'm
I
saying?
definitely agree that women are
So,
always expressing divinity. It's just, it's just like we're all light beings, but we're all not the same frequencies
yeah,
of light. We're all not the same expression. So the divinity is innate. I agree with you. It's inherent. But when you don't know the power of, when you don't know the
yeah,
power of what
yeah.
you, but Madonna, like you said, her name meaning mother, matrix. She knows the power of her name. She knows the power of the rituals, the symbolism that she's put forth in
She
her
knows, right?
imagery through the last 30 years that she's had this career as the queen of pop, the quintessential queen of pop. These people
She's
who are
knowing.
standing in front of us know the power that they're beholding.
Yeah, she
They
knows.
know the audience does not. So when you're exuding that
Mm-hmm.
sexual dominance, that liberated sexual expression, and you know the power in that, even the ritualization of twerking and, you know, the overt sexuality. There is, I think the artists are conscious of that power that's there, but they know that the audience, the majority of people in the audience are ignorant to that. That's where the weaponization comes from. That's where I don't know if, I'll say this. You're right. All women are divine. You're seeing different expressions of that divinity. I don't think we've seen the highest representation of the divine feminine in a hip hop context as of yet. I don't.
Yeah, and I don't think hip hop can contain it. I don't think that the culture is ready for it. So what we see in the music is a direct expression of who we are and what time we on. We're not at that place as a people. Where's it gonna come from to be the highest level of divine femininity? We are on a road and a path, and that is so where we choose to go. I would say when once we make that intention, then the artist will show up that represents that. But we don't know where we're going or where we want to go as a people. We ain't even made our mind up. Our Mercury, our Gemini, is not situated on a nodal point or direction that we're all headed in. So if again, they over there twerking while we get our mind together because they don't got direction. So they get low to the ground because we ain't show them
That's
how to
going to be
get high
great.
to the sky.
You know what Chiron
I'm gonna use
represents,
that in my
right? In a
sermon
birth
tomorrow.
chart, you know what Chiron represents.
Our, our wounds that are untended, and our untended wounds. You reincarnate from what I was told with a wound that you accrued from your past life. And I think that when Raku was speaking on this on this chart in
20
2017, he was speaking
degrees
about
of
the Chiron.
Aries.
So
You know
where's
what
hip hop's
transiting
Chiron placed
Chiron
in?
is now? 19. So hip hop, the reason why I brought it up is because hip hop is about to have a Chiron return.
19
And I
degrees.
think all of these issues from, okay, so when you have a
Explain
birthday,
what that means, please.
That's called a solar return because the sun is going back to the same place it was when you were born. A Chiron return would be when Chiron goes back to the same place and degree where it was when you were born. And Chiron represents, like Blue just explained, your wounds. That part of you, Chiron is known as the wounded healer because your wounds actually are a gateway to your healing. Your wounds are very much a part of you, and Chiron deals with the part of you that is traumatized, the part of you that hasn't healed, the part of you that relies on those wounds, though, in order to evolve and grow into the person that you came to be. So hip hop is about to have a Chiron return by spring of next year. See, Chiron is 19 right now, but it's not going to jump to 20, which is where hip hop has its Chiron. It's going to retrograde. So Chiron's going to retrograde later on for the rest of this year. And by winter of next year, 2024, it'll start moving again.
Right. So somebody said wounds are a gateway to healing, right? And again, I'm attempting as best I can because I be trying so hard to be throwing my fucking shoulder out. I be feeling like I'm trying to explain to y'all where this shit started at. What you think was happening to abandoned children in abandoned buildings, y'all? Let's be let's be honest with ourselves. If you can visualize the beginnings of hip hop in the Bronx and bombed out empty abandoned buildings, what you think was happening to abandoned children inside of abandoned buildings? That's where hip hop was birthed out of. Evidence of which, look at the progenitors of it and look how they have expressed themselves sexually, dealing with their sacral chakra that has not been dealt with. Because what? Look at the issues in the home, dealing with the root chakra, right? Well, hip hop's home was an abandoned building. The shit was grown out of trauma and abuse, right? And it has birthed everything that has come out of it has been stained with trauma and abuse. And us as a culture and society, we have never taken time out of hip hop to deal with our trauma or our abuses. What do? We pour liquor on it and exasperate it. So we are a culture that has what? We cannot have fun without alcohol in our hand. And what does the alcohol do? It destroys the liver, right? So you can never get to healing. You can never get to dealing with your trauma if you are always inebriated, destroying your kidneys and your liver. It's going to exasperate it even further. So if hip hop is tethered to its aspirations to be quote unquote rich, right? Cash rules everything around me. Then you see the richest niggas in the genre sell
Saturn and
liquor.
Pisces says we have to
50 years, yeah, 50 years in the red chakra is where we have spent in hip hop, right? And because that's so crazy and it could have ended up in way more crazier situations, we got to pat ourselves on the back and we got to have conversations like this where we can put things in retrospective to be like, damn, yo, I was doing 90 on the freeway with my eyes closed. Good thing I ain't crashed.
Saturn in the
That's hip
8th
hop.
is that crash.
Because it could have been way worse. But we have some light. We got some moments in it that we could think of that we like, damn, consciousness did break through. The light did, you know what I'm saying, humble the darkness for a little while. But how are we going to get back to that place where we can engulf this thing in light again and move hip hop into its divine calling, into its divine, to its higher divine frequency, where we're all on one accord and we're utilizing hip hop to build back up things that have been destroyed? Because this is a multi-trillion-dollar genre as well, of which we have not extrapolated the riches. We have not benefited. You know what I'm saying? We have not got the lion's share, should I say? Hence the fact that it's Leo. We have not got the lion's share of the fortune of the Jupiter that it represents. The largesse has gone to other people in other communities who have profited and figured out ways to ride this wave, who were more clever. Because I speak about the fact that the CIA commissioned Clive Davis back in the 70s on how to destroy black music. And this was through R&B, right? So it was already ready. He attacked R&B and they attacked reggae in 1980 when they got rid of Bob Marley. They was attempting to prevent Bob Marley from going on tour with Stevie Wonder because they said if that combination happened, they said if Stevie goes woke, there's nothing they can do to get back the reins of control because Stevie's resonant frequency, they already got charts. They know who's who. It's like if Stevie goes woke, if he becomes radicalized, there's no pulling them back. Like these people are out of here. And Bob Marley was creating rebellions throughout the world with his music. They knew this. They observed it. The CIA is in all international
And they
markets
know who
watching
to push on
how
these
niggas wake
stages.
up, right? So they know, yeah. So Clive Davis was instrumental back then. So here they go. They in the office. They got rid of the threat because right after they got rid of Bob Marley, they brought out Yellow Man, right? And he brings slack into reggae, and then it turns into dance hall, and it was never the same. So they over there popping champagne, celebrating how they got rid of how they dodged the bullet, right? And here comes hip hop with no knowledge of contracts. And then the old timers who knew that the Jewish mobsters was jerking niggas on contracts did not take the youngsters under their arm to be like, let me go up in these offices with you and tell you how the music business works. I watched Crush Groove last night just because I knew we was gonna have this conversation. I was like, let me brush up on some of my hip hop history. Even there with Sheila E. with the light skinned girl with the curly hair. Nigga, I was emotional with Russell Simmons to this day. Like, what you doing with my girl? I'm just being honest. If somebody's in the chat and you want to have a moment of honesty and a moment of clarity, niggas, this is your moment. You can say it too. Did you feel like you was dating Sheila E. when she was in Crush Groove?
That's really
Anyway.
deep. I mean, the Chiron return, it happens around, like you have a birthday every year. You're not going to have a Chiron return every year. It happens at 50, like around 50, 51. And what should happen when you have your Chiron return for everybody? Because you're you're already 50. Congratulations, you have one. If you're going to be 50, you're blessed to see 50, you will have one. What's supposed to happen is you look back at how you process the pain and the wounds. Because sometimes what hurt you 10 years ago, 10 months ago, you wake up and you're like, that don't hurt no more. Like, the way people the way I suffered certain, like you said, traumas, abuse, I was carrying that pain and those scars, and now I don't have scars. I got healed, fresh skin. I don't even see the scab anymore. That happens. So hopefully when you have your Chiron return, you're able to review the wounds that you endured and you have a different mindset. You have a different resilience where you can look at those wounds and you don't have the same suffering anymore. That's what's supposed to happen. Depending on, remember, what happens on the transit depends on your state of consciousness. Because some people have a Chiron return and it ends up being more traumatic because it's based on where you are. Somebody else's Mercury in Aries, they get in an argument everywhere they go. Another person got Mercury in Aries and they use it to just be an initiator of thought. They use it to just kind of be driven, determined. What happens with your chart, the transits affecting your chart, that all depends on your personal consciousness. So hip hop is about to have a Chiron return going into next year, and we'll get to reflect on these wounds. We'll get to reflect on how Nipsey was a representative of entrepreneurship and somebody took him from us. We get to reflect on how Dolph was a representation of ownership, entrepreneurship, and somebody took him from us. Those are scars. That hurts.
Scars. Look, 27 years later, we're still talking about Big and Pac like it was yesterday. I learned more. I've seen more coverage on Big and Pac this year than I have in any other year ever. I learned more about them this year than I have in any other year prior. And I'm a journalist, so I watched every single thing that I could on these gentlemen. But this year is when the clarity factor kicked in, where I got them, and I was able to actually realize that I had unhealed trauma, right? And I was able to 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 mutate it, to address it, to deal with it. You know what I'm saying? I was able to finally get to the drama, or I mean the trauma that was represented by losing these artists and how much we felt was taken from us when we lost them. You know what I'm saying? And that was a major thing that we were not addressing. It was traumatic as fuck. But
That,
we don't even
that was
remember
traumatic.
because DMX came right after that. And then Eminem came, right? And that was the thing to me that I was just like, this shows that the firewall of hip hop was no longer active. You know what I'm saying? And again, not to take nothing from DMX, but goddamn, like I was in a tunnel during them times. Like, you feel me? That was stick up, like the shit that he was rhyming about and what he represented was the reality of the life that was being lived in the streets at that time. And it was raw. And he just gave it to us in a way that
But
was just,
there was
it
such a
was not pretty.
sincerity. There was such a sincerity,
You
and
feel
there was
me?
a certain level
But,
of humanity there. He said, stop being greedy.
but stop being greedy, yeah. So that's the thing, hip hop, because hip hop did not take time to heal. We went right into, Puff took the reins from there and he rode that wave into a whole nother level of crass commercialism, another whole level of just, global commercialism. He gets embraced by the whole world because of the pain that he's going through, but he was able to market that pain.
Brilliant. But and the funny thing is,
It created a party
Sagittarius being
vibe.
the
You know
sign
what I'm
of
saying?
moral truths and, have that religious dogma. And he was a Sag, and I believe Scarlet is a Sag too. So they have that in common. They do have the sun sign in common.
Yeah, yeah. I think she's a Sag that's not born too many
Mhm.
days after him. He's 12, 18. You know what I'm saying? I don't think she's that far off. Um, but yeah, I look at sisters as her, as, having the ability to be catalysts of change once they heal their own trauma. But if she's convinced that her trauma is actually the thing that is getting her getting her money, or the reason why she has a career, you know what I'm saying? Then we're gonna run into an issue to be like, well, will this person ever abandon
Black
their
trauma is
trauma if their
marketable.
trauma is their calling card? You know, marketable, right? So I don't want to see her become that. I don't want to see her become, you know, Kali Ma marketed. Oh, she's 12, 12. Okay. Oh, 6 of clubs. So she's my card. Yeah. Right? She's prophetic. She's the messenger card. She was able to prophesize
Right.
them getting the fuck up out of New York.
Right. Definitely. Get the
Right?
fuck back. Move. The funny thing is, when I was hearing the whole "get the fuck back," not after it caught on, and people in the very beginning, I said, "This is an instruction. Move the fuck back. Get the fuck." I said, "This is an instruction." She might not be aware of it on a conscious level, but she's being used to deliver an instruction because, to be honest, Wall Street and Madison Avenue
Right.
have been telling people to get the fuck out. That's their New York. See what I heard when I heard this song. I said to myself, like, go to PA with us, get the fuck out. And it's like, no, like the gentrification and, again, Wall Street, Madison Avenue, Broadway, that's their New York. That's not your New York. You telling people to leave, but they already kicked y'all
Everything,
out. You see what I'm saying?
everything already kicked you out. Post 9/11. Post 9/11.
when they commissioned businesses in Lower Manhattan, they gave them an incentive to move uptown, and they gave them stipends. If you move uptown, they would give you bread. At the same time, Bill Clinton moved to Harlem. It Harlem is New York has been a wrap ever since those two things happened, because the corporate sponsorship was in play for them to enact a plan that they had all along. When they initially brought crack cocaine to the city and had niggas do their bidding to lower the property value so they could sell them brownstones for $1 and get you niggas up out of New York and send your nana back down south.
You see,
And that's where we at with it right now. So yeah, they been ran people out of New York. Post-COVID, they been told you that New York was there. So they keep telling you New York is theirs, and it's a city for the ultra rich. Global, it's the Empire State.
the
They want to bring
fuck
rich people
out.
from around the world
That
there
that's
and get you
when I heard
niggas,
that I said
you know what I'm
everybody
saying?
like, oh yeah,
The
this
fuck
my
out,
hood, this my
right?
project, this get the fuck out. Nah, y'all been told to get the fuck out. That was the irony.
It been a rap. That was the irony of it. Yeah, that she made a song for the one percenters.
It's isn't that funny
Prisons up
that
north.
people listen to that
You know what I mean?
and they like,
That's
oh,
the
this is New York pride. Yeah, this is about my block, my hood, my territory, my gang, like I said, my project, my building. And it's like, no, like what's really going on? The real get the fuck out, move the fuck back is, like you said, Wall Street, Madison Avenue, and Broadway, and the gentrification saying, no, you get the fuck out. You're not needed here anymore. But I don't think people, that's what, which, like, I was like, damn, so when she did the challenge, like, y'all, I would have came at it from that perspective. When I, like, yo, I'm gonna tell, no, Madison Avenue told y'all niggas to get the fuck out. You know, but Wall Street told y'all niggas to move the fuck back. Y'all not in a position to tell other people to leave New York. That's not what's really going on. So again, Black people caught up in these fantasies and these hip hop songs and this hip hop culture, that's not what's really happening. Again, you're gonna get blindsided. You're gonna look up, the sky gonna be orange. What's going on? You're gonna look up, the culture's gonna be, the toxicity. You see what I'm saying? It's over your head. It's over your head. You're not getting it. Like the music.
all of that. Symbolism is strong. And because the veil is lifted, yeah, I think that the music is just, it's hitting to a point where it manifests on so many different levels. It means so many different things. It's so layered right now. But the prognosis for hip hop in its 50th year is that it is beautiful. It is still growing. There are the Russells in the game. I really appreciate that young man. Not only for I think he's a hell of a lyricist. I feel that him and Real Simba are the manifestation post Nipsey of, you know what I'm saying, a particular genre of West Coast artists that I really appreciate. I really appreciate them. Yeah, I mean, like, I seen something earlier with
I
Russell
seen it.
and he was
I seen it.
spazzing out,
Yeah, he
but his
goes
mama was
in.
right there. I was like,
He goes in.
if this ain't
I've observed in
if
this
this ain't
social media driven era with respect to artists and music is there isn't as much of an emphasis or a need, I think, on the hit. You know what I mean? Like the hit. You know how people say, oh, such and such is my favorite rapper. Oh, such and such is my favorite rapper I follow on TikTok. Well, what's
yeah,
their hit? Like that mindset is kind of it's going now because there's no real hit that defines Lil Russell from what I understand. I mean, I'm not on the West Coast, so I don't know if they're playing
yeah.
his music necessarily in radio outlets, but that's another thing. Mainstream radio outlets, you get your music from scrolling. You don't got to sit by the radio. This ain't 85, but we got the tape deck ready to, no, like, right.
Oh, I don't even have a radio. Like, I don't listen to the radio. I know what's on the radio. All my information that I interface with, you know, comes from the internet, or it comes from You know, if I'm getting social cues like, yo, you gotta listen to such and such. Oh, word. But yeah, I'm catching everything on my feed. You know what I'm saying? And then, or if I'm on YouTube, and they might make a suggestion, but very rarely. The majority of it comes off of social media apps specifically.
No.
You know what I mean? Even like when I go to the club, that don't even represent what's taking place on my. That's regional. When I go to the club, I'm hearing regional markets championing the heroes of their market. Once again, I don't know nothing about their hits, but they know every single word in the club, and they jumping off the rafters like how we would for Jay-Z back in the day if they put on
Right.
6 a.m. on the way to the what? They showing up. So I'm like, these are regional, hip hop is becoming very regional again. Where that one hit that carries over the radio that just covers the whole country and everybody, that's not what it is. It's regional hits. It's people championing, the heroes of their market. And then once again, if they come and they do
Mm-hmm.
collaborations, then they bringing that person over to their market and vice versa. But it's almost like it's going back to the beginning with the micro marketing. Micro marketing. Feel me? My micro market is that I got a page, I'm popping. My name is La Russell. I might have 10,000 friends initially, you know what I mean? But I got 1,000 core fans that fuck with me, and they going and getting me other people to tell them that I'm lit. And the next thing you know, I'm getting mainstream media coverage because, you know what I'm saying, I got a buzz. And now I'm able to expand that and grow that. Yeah, I really, really do wish that I was an emerging artist in my teens or my
And
early
all of that
20s
without a
during
hit.
this time period. You feel me? I will go crazy over the opportunities that are available to me
That's why
with
that's
all of
why
these
all of
different
these
devices
artists
and
from
all of
previous
these different
generations have come back
platforms.
because they looked and said, "Oh, I had to rap a van and drive from city to city. I had to go to this conference, the Jack the Rapper, whatever. Y'all can just press a button." That's why all these people are still doing music, and I'm like, "You still doing music?
Remember,
Why?" Because
yeah, yeah. You had to do the album signing. You had to do the store signings. You had to go to the radio stations, right, and stroke the program directors. You had to do the after parties in the clubs. You had to do walkthroughs. You had to do the birthday passes for all of the different cities, and they radio
yeah,
stations most of the time for free. Now they like, I could be on my computer in my in-home studio with the green screen doing whatever y'all need me to
you had
do
you had
right from the
you
comfort
had to
of my
shake
home.
hands and kiss babies.
You know what I'm saying? You had you had to be a politician. You had to shake hands and kiss babies. You don't got to do that no more. Now you just got to connect. Now you got to, it comes down to the 100 fan rule, what they call the long tail. That if you can find 100 core fans, really I would say 1,000. You know what I'm saying? Then you're gonna win. Yeah. So I use my page to break artists that I feel
Mm-hmm.
are consistent with people that, the type of music that I fuck with. So, like, I get to be like an A&R, or I get to be like a platform or a venue. Like, my shit is like SOBs. You know what I'm saying? And I take pride in that. You feel me? I take pride in being able to still say, nah, I'm gonna go find me some artists. I don't know what you're talking about. Like, hip hop can never be dead. Like, there's always gonna be a vibe. There's always gonna be a bop. There's always gonna be somebody carrying the conversation responsibly in a way in which needs to be highlighted. And yeah, I've come across quite a few. You know what I mean? And I'm really a fan of the genre. You know what I'm saying? I think that we're not at our pinnacle point. You know what I'm saying? We have not reached our prime, but I'm also very much in tune with the cosmological winds in a way that, it's like financial markets. Financial markets are affected by people and their emotions and what they do.
And people are affected by cosmological cycles and what they do. Okay? So yeah, like let's just be appreciative of the process. And again, I'm humbled to be able to make observations and make sense of the things that I'm looking at. Because I sit and I ask myself, like, if you could not put a perspective on things, that you might be crazy. Like, so then I'm like, shit, well, maybe people is out here crazy because they just cannot put context to what it is that they're seeing. It probably would drive you crazy if you was just like this at all times, because so many different things are happening and you don't see the cohesiveness of them. I can center myself and be like,
Yep.
man, all that shit is the same thing. Just different expressions of it. It's just, you know, cosmological alignment showing up in different ways, expressing itself, blowing air over there. But yeah, nothing is independent from itself. Everything is connected. And that's the beauty of it. And I honor people such as yourself that aid and assist in the beauty of showing us the connectivity in all things, because you know, it's like I feel that if, you know, the more we can connect things, the more that we can simplify them, the more that we can overstand them, you know what I'm saying? The more that we can integrate them, the more that we can appreciate them, you know, and they have less effect on us, you know? So this was a profound conversation. I would not put a number tally on it. I don't know if you're watching the watch or the clock, but you know, we did some numbers. We went in here for a minute, and we had an amazing opportunity, you know, to see some beautiful things come forward out of our minds and our mouths.
I'm
So
grateful
I
too. I
appreciate
know,
this
like you said,
opportunity.
you know, doing the work, like you said, we can't just point fingers, criticize our people. We got to, you know, be understanding and then find strategies to do the work. And I know you're constantly always doing the work. And so I'm honored for you to even want to build.
A version, yeah, a version of it. You know, my contribution to hip
Oh,
hop
yeah,
is not. It's still unsettled because I still got so much expression that I want to contribute. I still have so many things that I want to influence and affect. I have so many things I want to curate with a proper understanding. You know what I'm saying? That we see
absolutely.
things different.
This was great.
You
This was
feel me?
great. I mean, it's a lot. Like, to bring the cosmology into a discussion about hip hop, I don't get the opportunity to do that often. So, you know, because we're supposed to be able to look at the stars, look at the energy, look at the universal laws playing out, and know what's happening. You're supposed to know what the climate is dictating you to do. Know what the climate is telling you, you know, we're going to move this way and less that way. That's why we study these esoteric sciences, because we're not out here winging it and rolling the dice.
Well, I would say this. I'm gonna put it on record because this is a job of the Sibyls. We need a hip hop oracle system, right? We need 3 main astrologers that can act like the Oracle of Delphi, right? Sitting on a proverbial mountain, right? Explaining the winds and the waves of hip hop. So they hear the winds, right? That's the cosmological reasonings, and you could look in the waves, you know what I'm saying, to see, all right, what has manifested, what's going on here on this plane that speaks to what's going on in the winds. And, you know, just giving some astrological suggestions about where the game should be going according to what's being supported by the cosmos. I think
I
that's
agree,
a super duper
especially since
responsible
people,
thing.
you know, structure their lives around hip hop music and culture. So if that's going to be your template that you draw from, and how you choose relationships, how you choose what to eat, whatever, how you choose what to wear, if hip hop is going to be your mother and father, your parent that guides you.
It's the well they drink. Yeah. It is. And that we can reach them there. It's the well that they draw from. You know what I'm saying? So it's like Elijah said, you got to put the clean glass next to the dirty glass. We have become experts in saying, all right, I've done a diagnostic on the waters and I know how much chemicals in it because these people is over here poisoning the water. All right, we get that. So the next thing is, are you going to clean the water? Are you going to remineralize it? You know what I'm saying? Are you going to make it better accessible? Like you want to create some technology like spouts and stuff like that so the people can get to the water. You don't got to fall in it. Like that is our job now. You know what I'm saying? Especially as elders in the culture. You know what I'm saying? I'm only saying that because we were born into it and grew up in it. Not the fact that we got age on us, because I swear, if you are part of hip hop, you don't age. You just don't. It preserves us. That's a Leo aspect too, I believe.
That's
That
the fact.
fountain of youth dealing with the gold. Right? I ain't got no gold water to pop out. Dealing with the gold, it preserves. I'm looking at these artists and I was looking at them at essence like, yo, these dudes really didn't really age like that. And then some of them did, but they aged gracefully. You know what I'm saying? And hip hop affords us that. So yeah, we'll continue this conversation. I appreciate, this information, this demonstration. I'm sure that everybody in attendance is very thankful for what they were able to walk away from, and please save this
Oh
so
yeah.
we could
We scraped the surface. We didn't even
throw
talk
it on
about
to
Jupiter in the 10th house of Leo, which means higher
yeah,
knowledge about food, because we've lost a lot of rappers for health reasons. K Slade, Fight Dog, Big Marky,
scoop
Dave from De La Soul. Like
life, yeah.
we've touched the surface. So if you want to continue to do a part two, we go deeper into the chart and what's happening. I'm more than willing whenever you need me.
Yeah, we're gonna do it again. I'm gonna go brush up on my notes. I'm gonna come back with some interesting inquiries and some interesting insight, and we just continuously pushing this envelope forward to people until they can see this thing as a spaceship, as a Nebuchadnezzar. You know what I'm saying? And you got a ticket, family. Whoever you are, you have a ticket on this ship, right? And you have a right to say where this ship goes. How much power is that? You know what I'm saying? You very well can be the one holding the master key that can direct the ship where it needs to go. Because it ain't no telling who's the one when it comes to, you know what I'm saying, this hip hop thing and the contributions that can be made to really push the culture forward. Hopefully you can see yourself in this conversation. You can see strength in this conversation. And hopefully this conversation will assist in better clarity for the things that you have been seeing that are confusing you or making you emotionally imbalanced because you don't agree with what you're seeing. If you can understand it, and sometimes it can take the sting of emotion out of it. You know what I'm saying? So I'm gonna leave it at that. I appreciate you again. Thank you for taking the time. Thank you for lending the
Always.
insight. You know what I'm saying, and the
Always. And
wisdom to this
anybody who wants to
conversation.
dive deep into this trauma and shadow work, I have a e-course out now called Merging the Shadow, customized shadow work for all 12 zodiac signs.
And
You want to start doing some healing?
I,
Yeah. Ooh,
look,
I don't know
the
what.
minute you finish,
That's confirmation. To my page.
yeah,
Woo. That came out. Yeah, that's the weather. That's been always been all summer. Cancer season need that water.
that water. Yeah,
Hey.
that's when you know that you done broke through the firmament.
Definitely. So I think you have to save it on your page
Right?
because you started the live. Yeah.
I started it.
Okay.
Okay. All right, my bad.
Bye,
Well, I
everybody.
got you.
Talk to you soon, Blue. Peace.